across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 fast-paced hours of news, views and topical debate. Get on the phone and get on the show by calling me on 03444991000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I guarantee I will play your message out. I can't say fairer than that, can I? It is Tuesday, May the 20th. Here's what's coming up. Rod Little joins me in a couple of minutes to discuss justice in the land of two-tier Keir. Jailed for a tweet, mum Lucy Connolly will remain in jail behind bars after her appeal against her grotesquely disproportionate 31-month prison sentence for posting hurty words on Twitter. When quizzed about this poor woman's outrageous continued incarceration, Starmer insisted, "I'm not across the details of this case." That would be the case splashed all over the papers that everyone is talking about. Don't you wish our undear leader would just stop lying? I'm not across the details of the case. Who's advising this guy? 03444991000. Also tonight, Rod, Tim Montgomery and Dame Andrea Jenkins with their take on the Prime Minister's shocking Brexit betrayal. After the sellout, the fallout. In the end, doesn't Starmer's fabulous Brexit reset deal amount to this? Britain will once again have to hand Brussels billions of pounds for the privilege of being bossed around by the EU's millions of rules and regulations. 03444991000. But at least two-tier looks set to finally stop the boats, as in British fishing boats, after he allowed French and other European nations to plunder UK waters for the next 12 years. Isn't that special? 03444991000. I'll bring you the latest on the escalating migrant crisis after officials officially told the Cabinet that Keir's calamitously disastrous smash the gangs strategy will do nothing to prevent record numbers of illegal foreigners crossing the Channel unlawfully. Yep, Keir's crew sat there while the experts told them that smashing the gangs was an absolute no-hoper. Like we didn't already know that. And yet, the Prime Minister sticks with it. Smash the gangs, smash the gangs. They want to smash the gangs. It isn't working. It hasn't worked. It never will work. They haven't smashed a single gang yet in 10 months. It's ridiculous. 03444991000. Plus, as it emerges that the Metropolitan Police are considering an investigation into Gary Lineker for the alleged anti-Semitic hate crime of his horrible post on Instagram, the Jew hate that poisoned the Eurovision Song Contest continues apace. Now Spain and Belgium are demanding a probe into what they say was vote rigging. They insist the count was fixed in favour of Israel, propelling brave singer Yuval Raphael to an impressive second place. I'd say that if there was any vote rigging going on, it was to make sure that Israel did not win. BBC host Graham Norton announced that the relief in the Swiss auditorium was palpable when Austria won the night, meaning that next year's contest won't have to be staged in Tel Aviv. The anti-Semitic protests that stained Saturday's show in Bâle were a disgrace. Blatant racism at the Eurovision Song Contest. If that's going to happen, isn't it time to call time on this clapped-out carnival of vicious political correctness? 0344 499 1000. Plus, the King's obscene wealth. No one expects the monarch to be a pauper, but 640 million quid? Why do taxpayers hand this guy £83 million a year to run the royal family when he could easily afford to pay for the monarchy himself? 03444991000. And finally, former Home Secretary Suella Braverman says that woke policing is killing free speech. Is she right? 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday night together. And without further ado, let's go over to, this will take about 10 minutes. I'll just reel off his jobs. He is a columnist on The Sun, The Sunday Times and The Spectator, as well as a excellent presenter on Times Radio, Saturday morning, 10 until 1 p.m. That's his jobs covered. Welcome, Rod Liddle.
Good evening, mate. Dreadful song, the Israeli song.
Yeah.
Dreadful song.
It was, but so was ours. So was ours, in fairness.
Yeah, ours was better. It's interesting that there was a lot of anti-Semitism there, but by the same token, quite clearly, people in Britain who voted for the song, they didn't vote for the song. They voted because they like Israel.
Well, yeah, and they didn't, and as always, they didn't vote for Britain because they don't like Britain. I mean, it is
exactly.
It's heavily political, too political, and I think on Saturday it did spill over into something really rather nasty. But
yes,
I'll be broaching that very important topic later on. I suppose you have to watch all this stuff now because I forgot you're also now the Sunday Times' TV critic. So welcome to my previous nightmare.
Yes, indeed. Do you know, I'd watched no TV whatsoever for about 20 years, and now I find myself knowing the names of all the presenters on Bargain Hunt.
Tell me about it.
It's soul-rotting. Yeah. That's what it is.
When I was doing it, right, I did it for 12 years, and we once did a focus group for readers, and they all turned out. And it turned up that the average Sunday Mirror reader watched, and I thought, my God, I'm watching 26 hours of television every week. Turned out the average Sunday Mirror reader watched 35 hours of television a week. So I was just a mere amateur. But when I used to go to fashionable dinner parties, among the upper middle class, the media echelons, I would sit there and they'd all be talking about important political innovations and what's gone on this week. And I'd have to sit there saying, yeah, but did you see what happened on EastEnders? I mean, Phil Mitchell's really done it now. It was my only topic of conversation. So but
it's important. It's what I often say. My great mate Ali Ross is the Sun's television correspondent, and I still believe that is probably the most important job in Fleet Street.
Yeah,
writing about the television for the Sun.
It is, and he does a great job, and so do you, by the way. But as I say, welcome to my former nightmare. Talking of nightmares, let's talk about Lucy Connolly. Before we talk about her fate, I think she is the classic epitome of two-tier justice system, or the typical victim, as it were, the archetypal victim of that. But watch this, Rod. You won't believe this. So today, that oily snake oil salesman, Mr. Starmer, was quizzed, was asked about Lucy Connolly. Watch this. Watch this.
I'm not across the details of the particular case, but let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely. I'm equally, though, against incitement to violence against other people. That has long been an offence in our country, and rightly so. And so I say, don't know the details of this case, but free speech, yes. Incitement to violence, no.
Rod, look, I'm not going to beat about the bush here. When he says he doesn't know the details of this case...
It's a lie.
It's a lie. He's lying. He's absolutely lying. It's all over the papers. It's all anything anyone is talking about. And it's a massive issue for him. This is the woman that got 31 months for posting some hurty words on Twitter. She shouldn't be in jail at all, but certainly not for 31 months. Her appeal failed, and then he goes off into some spiel about how important freedom of speech is to him. As long as Lucy Connolly's in jail, it is clear that he is not a supporter of freedom of speech. He's an enemy of freedom of speech.
Well, except that it's not him who's done the sentencing. I mean, he may well have done under a previous guise as GPP, but I think what it does is it underlines the real problem we have with our judiciary. And you know, Kev, I've been banging on about this for ages, that it's not the European Court of Human Rights that's the problem in getting rid of asylum seekers. It's the bloody lawyers.
Yeah.
It's the judiciary.
Yes.
And the same thing applies here. You know, my suspicion is Keir Starmer would have been a bit happier if she had had her appeal upheld.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
I suspect he would. It doesn't excuse him from a barefaced lie to the public like that, of course. But I suspect he would. But we have a judiciary which is in the grip of a progressivism and wokeness which makes it it's not even a 2-tier society, it's about a 5-tier society. that you have judges who, when some middle class twit, and there's a superfluous W in there, when one of those people glues themselves to the M25 and stops people going to work or getting to hospital appointments, says, well, I so admire your dedication to your cause. You know, so you get that. You then get the oiks, of course, the hoi polloi, the scum who rioted last summer, and they all get banged up, much as did, you know, in Victorian times, the working class always copped it. So it's about 5 tiers, and it's not, I don't think, something. It's something which Starmer can do something about in the long term. He can say, look, I think our judicial system has gone too far. We first need to stop these tribunals where asylum seekers are always allowed to remain in the country, no matter what they've done, and no matter what country they come from. So we've got to root those people out, the people who supplement their incomes as lawyers by presiding over the same people they've been representing. I mean, it's an absurdity.
It is. Apparently, Rod, that Lord Justice Holroyd, the judge who presided over Lucy Connolly's appeal, has got a long track record of, shall we say, somewhat woke decisions.
Yeah, but that's the trouble they all have. And, you know, you look back, it takes a lot to shift this. If you look back to the 70s, by and large, the judiciary was conservative. And quite right-wing conservative. You remember the various judges at the time, you know, who would come down very heavily on left-wing protesters
and they'd never heard of Gaza or EastEnders or anything like that. They lived in their own kind of weird ivory towers, nothing to do with the rest of the human race. And they, as you say,
that's right. And they decided that someone as noble as Jeremy Thorpe couldn't possibly have had anything.
And also, do you remember Lady Archer, Lord Archer's wife?
Yes.
Is she not fragrant?
Is she not fragrant?
Yeah.
So I don't know, I can't smell her from here, mate.
Yeah, never mind what she reeks of. It looks like she's a wrong un to me, but no.
But that's how it was it ended in the 80s, and gradually the judiciary's been taken over by the same people who've taken over our schools. I think the teachers are worst of it, frankly, but also they were probably always there in social services. But the judiciary is really important because we've kind of become a juristocracy. These days, all important matters are decided by, you know, public inquiries led by superannuated judges.
Yes.
And who deliberate and always come to a progressive view, because that is the way the judiciary is. Anyone who says that the law is pristine and above party politics is an idiot. Because clearly in the case of this particular woman, Connolly, and clearly in all those cases with the asylum seekers, the law is deeply, deeply biased, you know?
Yeah, it is. And when he talks about freedom of speech, I mean, you say, you know, it wasn't Keir Starmer, of course, who sentenced Lucy Connolly. He has nothing to do with her appeal either. As you say, interesting point. Perhaps he would have rather been relieved if she was released. But you know, the spectre of Mr. Starmer, or Sir Keir, hung heavily over all of those sentences in the wake of the Southport riots. I mean, those magistrates, those judges were under instruction. Otherwise, why were those cases heard so quickly? People were in jail within 5 days. And why were the sentences so grotesquely disproportionate? And now this guy that I was telling you about, Lord Justice Holroyd, he denying Lucy Connolly's appeal, he said there was no arguable basis to consider the sentence manifestly excessive. It is manifestly excessive. I mean, she got 6 months more than some of the people throwing bricks.
Yeah, it's ludicrous, and it. Sorry, Holroyd. It is manifestly unfair and patently so to every single person in the country. We all think it's unfair. My guess is, if pushed, I would suggest Keir Starmer probably thinks it's unfair, but would never have the guts to say so. But you're right. You're right, of course, that those sentences were handed down in an atmosphere of retribution by the government against people who disagree, who objected to the number of asylum seekers we have coming here, the number of hotels being used, the amount of public money being spent on them, and it was retribution. There's no question about that. When, for example, are we going to find out what happens? You're quite right. They were sentenced within 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
When are we going to find out what happened to that appalling Labour councillor who said that the protesters should have their throats cut? His case has been put back and back and back. You know, he's not even up in court this month.
This is the problem, Rod. When they talk about, these people merely, felt the full force of the law, British justice at work. Well, there's no doubt whatsoever that had they been left-wing protesters, the treatment of them would have been markedly different. That's the problem we have here in this country.
I think that's true.
It's against the law now to be right-wing.
I think that's true, and I think what she tweeted was horrible.
Oh yeah.
But it was only a tweet, and I think we've got to get ourselves away from this ludicrous position we're in, where we think that tweets are actual real life. They're not.
Yeah.
You know.
No, exactly right. I think we should make this, if not official law, unofficial law. I don't think anybody in this country, in a Western free democracy, should go to jail for what they post on social media, for their tweets.
What if it's Iqbal Akbar, who posts that he's going to cut your throat and mine tomorrow afternoon?
Well, to be honest with you, I treat that exactly the same as I would have treated Lucy Connolly's tweet. I mean, the threats that happen, the alleged threats that happen on social media, are not to be treated very seriously.
They're not to be treated. I would tend to agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah.
So she's a victim of something that went horribly wrong here, and she's going to remain in jail, and that she will continue to be an embarrassment to this government and an embarrassment to Keir Starmer. But I don't know, just to go back to that clip I played you at the beginning, I don't know who's advising this guy, but somebody obviously said, well, act like you don't know about it. Plead ignorance. I mean, he looked like an absolute dork there, clearly lying. I mean, who's advising him? Don't they know that was ridiculous?
Well, if he doesn't know the details of that case, he should be sacked anyway. I mean, it's an absurdity. Yeah. And of course he knows the details of the case. Yeah. And the endorsement of freedom of speech, it didn't ring terribly true. Yeah. I don't think Sir Keir Starmer does believe in freedom of speech, to be honest.
Don't think any of these Labour lot do. They're socialists. They like controlling speech. They don't like free speech. Bridget Phillipson, that education secretary, that little class warrior, ball of class hatred, her first move was to axe the freedom of speech on campuses.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. She says it's going to come back in some form, but we will wait and see when we bridge it.
I mean, what kind of person looks at a law or a proposed law that said this law will enshrine freedom of speech on university campuses and goes, I don't want any of that. Let's get rid of that. I don't like the sound of that. I mean, that's these people in a nutshell. Now, when we come back after the break, Rob, we're going to talk about Brexit. And no doubt, if you confronted the Prime Minister now and said, what did they say Brexit research? Brexit. I'm not quite across the details. You'll have to remind me. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
this is just the latest, let's face it, ridiculous disaster that Labour have presided over.
This ought to be the end of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
If there was any justice, this would be the end of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout my 14 years in Parliament, I saw that the Labour Party in Parliament was completely disconnected from the working people they purported to represent.
Right.
They have gone on and on and on about niche cultural issues in ways that I know, because I'm from a working class background, that normal working people are not interested in those niche cultural issues.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're still talking to columnist Rod Liddle. Rod, I'm just going to show the readers, if they haven't seen it. This is the front page of The Sun today, rather good front page, done up like a kipper with a big sort of fish kipper with listing everything that is contained in Keir Starmer's...
The Sun has recovered its knack for brilliant headlines recently. They think it's all over.
I was going to say that was brilliant, wasn't it? With the
absolutely,
they
brilliant.
think it's all over.
I was with the editor the night the night before that came out, and she was cock-a-hoop with delight over this headline. It's great to see that sense of fun you get with the Sun back again a bit.
I used to work there years ago, and the fun we had was fueled by a kind of anti-establishment fury.
Yes.
This front page sums it up. And look, so what they've said is done up like a kipper. Starmer agrees to take rules from Brussels, bow down to EU judges, pay billions for the privilege, throw open our borders, let the French plunder our fish for 12 years, and in return he gets 0.3% growth by 2040. Well, they've forgotten the shorter queues at the EU passport controls, so that was a massive concession he managed. He didn't really get anything back at all, did he? And yet he's sold us straight down the river, it seems to me. The only one thing he may have achieved is he's finally stopped the boats, as in British fishing boats. I mean, what is he doing? What's the point of this?
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because hitherto he'd done rather well abroad. You know, he looked quite dexterous and sharp when dealing with Trump and dealing with the Europeans over Ukraine and Putin, and had got quite a lot of kudos for it. But it has to be said, we need a new deal with the EU. We need that. But his powers of negotiation seemingly deserted him. One of the things I was looking forward to, I eat quite a lot of fish, but that's not the point. I'd rather hope that we would be able to have a far more conservationist approach to our fishing industry, because the seas are overfished. This is going to make it 10 times worse. And it's what Macron's wanted for, 8 years. Is to get his hands on our cods.
As you see,
so to speak.
But you heard what happened though, Rod. Was that we'd gone to the table, the British, Keir and the crew, on the assumption that they were going to agree to us giving them continued fishing rights for 4 years. So they sat down, and apparently Ursula von der Leyen and the gang turned around and said, we've had to think about this. We want to make that 12 years. And Keir Starmer just went, yeah, all right.
Yeah. Well,
he's the worst negotiator ever, isn't he?
It's very, very bad negotiations, but it seems as if across all the subjects, Ursula had his bollocks in a vice. I think that's the best way I can put it. And turned.
It's exactly what it was. And also,
12 years, please, Mr. Prime Minister. 12 years.
Yes, sir. No. Well, here's the other thing. I mean, to illustrate what a bad negotiator he was, don't forget he gave this sort of press conference the night before, Sunday night, announcing we're going to do this deal. We're definitely going to sign a deal with the EU. Very pleased about it. It's the equivalent of, I heard somebody, it's not my analogy, but it's a good one. It's like the equivalent of someone walking into a second-hand car dealer and saying to the car salesman, before you start, can I just tell you, I'm definitely 100% going to buy a car off you. Do you see what I mean? That's the equivalent of what he did.
Yes, it is. It's very bad negotiating, and what he wanted to do, it's all presentational, isn't it? He wanted to be able to claim he'd got a good deal before he even sat down to sign it, and clearly didn't look at the small print. Maybe actually he really wasn't across the detail. He knows all about Lucy Connolly, but he didn't actually see the small print. I think the fishing stuff will come back to bite him. Even though we don't have a very large fishing fleet, it will really. They're very telegenic, the fishermen.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah, it's sort of. Fishing is totemic for this country. We regard it as actually much more important. They have a
lot of supporters.
Yeah, people.
Sorry, go on.
People instinctively support the fishermen, and they've been given a very bad deal here. Very bad deal.
You see, I don't particularly object to the. I think it's going on too long, but to the youth visas for young people to come over here. I don't think they're not the people we're really worried about. But it's all the other stuff. Stop exporting your asylum seekers to Calais and thus to Britain. Give us a better trade deal and stop trying to force us to adopt your norms and practices that we don't want to. We're not part of you anymore. I think it would have been better if David Davis had been in charge of negotiations, frankly.
Damn straight. Or David Frost, one of the proper politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, a last point for me, if you will, Rod. I mean, what do you think? What is going on in Keir Starmer's head, if anything at all? Because I haven't detected any desire on the part of the British people to negotiate that Brexit reset. But he's gone into these negotiations as if he's got the hopes and the dreams of the British population behind him. But it's quite the reverse. Why is he doing this when he knows that 17.4 million people, and probably more now, don't want to be closer to Europe? Why is he doing what we don't want?
I'm less sure about that than you, Kev, because I think Brexit's receded into the past. I'm glad we did it. There is a case for saying we need a closer relationship with the EU, particularly over stuff like defence. And that's come about, over the last 3 or 4 years, and especially since Trump took over. So I think that there was a case for doing something, but not giving away every last bloody flounder and sprat that he could find in Margate to the French. It's ludicrous. But he's in real trouble, Kevin.
Yeah.
He has got to somehow bring together two blocks of people who believe in diametrically opposed things. That's the voters in the north, the voters in the south. And this was a sop to all those who wanted to remain. And it may have done some good with those voters, but it will have annoyed and enraged many in the north of England.
It's enraged a lot. I read your piece about Middlesbrough, very interesting. It's more that people... Brexit is, if you like, faded into the past, but the reasons that people voted Brexit, it wasn't just to leave Europe, it was to tell the political establishment we are sick to death of you pushing us around and doing what we don't want you to do, and we're going to stand up for ourselves. And it is that sentiment that I think continues till today, and that Keir Starmer doesn't. He's tone deaf to it. He doesn't understand it, and I think you're right. I think he's in deep trouble now. Rod, fantastic to talk to you as always. Brilliant. Have a great week, and we'll talk next week. Rod Little there. Don't forget you can read his columns in the Sun later on the week, on Thursday, I think, and then the Sunday Times. Of course, the Spectator, that comes out on Thursdays. It's all over the place. And he's the TV critic in the Sunday Times, and you can listen to him on Times Radio 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. on Saturday. It's a good show. I recommend it. Next up, we've got all the heavyweights today. We've got Tim Montgomery, formerly, of course, a top Tory, now representing Reform, if you like. And we're going to get his take on the Brexit betrayal. He's pretty angry. So that next, stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, he's in the house, he's in the building. It's Tim Montgomery, formerly of the Tory party, the founder, of course, of Conservative Home, who switched to the Reform Party. So interesting times, well, for all of us, but certainly for a political chameleon like Mr. Montgomery.
Oh!
No, he's not a chameleon. He knows where he stands.
What are you doing for the next half an hour? Because I'm about to walk out.
You're off. I'm just trying to get you riled up and angry, because I know you are about the Brexit betrayal. I want to get your take on this first, though, before we actually discuss the details. We played this to Rod Little. This is the Prime Minister today when he was asked about the Lucy Connolly case. This, of course, is the very famous case of the poor woman who's doing 31 months in jail for hurty words on Twitter. Nobody thinks she should still be in jail. Her appeal failed. Everybody talking about it all over the newspapers, all over television, all over the radio. Here's the Prime Minister's response when asked about it.
I'm not across the details of the particular case, but let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely.
Yeah, well, he's banging on about free speech, so we don't believe that for a second. But pretending that he's not across the details, as if, oh, Lucy Connolly, just remind me, he's the bloody Prime Minister. So it's not that he's not across the case. I just think that his advisers should not have advised him to lie when asked that question. They obviously said, feign ignorance is probably the best way through this tricky terrain. It's bad politics.
Well, he's not just the Prime Minister, as you say, Kev. He's a lawyer. This is his whole world. He knew exactly what was happening with Lucy Connolly. And you remember, he didn't have a very good start to being Prime Minister. We had the whole winter fuel allowance debacle, etc. His handling of the riots, according to
Labour people was supposed to be one of his strong points. And then they were putting people into jail in quick order, and he knew exactly who they were putting into jail. He would have been absolutely across the detail.
Absolutely.
Of this case. So he basically lying to us, barefaced lie that was.
Yeah,
and it's not just a lie, it's insulting our intelligence.
It does,
because we know he's lying to us.
Yeah.
He knew exactly all about that case. He just doesn't want to be on record in front of a television camera being seen to defend, as you say, the indefensible.
Yeah, and, I keep hearing there are brilliant people running the number 10 Downing Street operation. Well, if that's the kind of advice they're giving the Prime Minister, I don't think they are that brilliant. They're certainly not very brilliant to send him onto live television in Albania to be humiliated.
Wait a second, though, Kevin. You're right, of course, advisors count, but even if you have the best advice, he's the Prime Minister.
Yeah,
he can ignore it if he wants to.
Yes.
And the fact is, he takes responsibility. We should hold him to account, not as advisors for that.
Yeah, but he's an automaton.
Well, you make a good point.
He will do what he's told. And certainly in the area of media communications, he is, to be fair to him, aware of his limitations. And therefore, I think he just does exactly what old Boatface McSweeney tells him, As I always say, never trust a man with ginger hair. So that's a joke, folks. That is just a joke. Prince Harry. Right, shall we move on?
I think you need to. You'll be moved on. That's what's about to happen.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been nice knowing you, folks. No, seriously, let's talk about the Brexit betrayal. For a betrayal, it surely is. Rod and I were just talking about the excellent front page of The Sun, which sums it up. Done up like a kipper, Starmer agrees to take rules from Brussels, bow down to EU judges, pay billions for the privilege, throw open our borders, let the French plunder our fish for the next 12 years, and in return he gets 0.3% growth by 2040. Terrible deal. Makes me ask, why was he interested in it in the first place?
Well, you've just been talking about how bad he is at comms. Where to begin with this deal? But just on that comms issue, a week ago, we were in the studio talking about Keir Starmer saying immigration was out of control. It was an incalculable cost to the country. A week later, what do we have? He's restarting, effectively, mobility of young people from Europe into Britain.
Yes.
We don't know the numbers yet. That's not being told to us. They're probably going to release it at 1 minute past midnight sometime on a busy news day.
When something else is going on.
Happening, so we don't notice it. We know how these games are played now.
Good day to release bad news, that.
And this was one of those rare occasions. Europe is petrified, over-petrified in my view, but Europe is petrified at the moment about Russia. They want Britain back in the security world, in the defence world. So we had, for once, Kev, we had the cards to play. And what have we got? What have we got in return for selling out our fishermen, agreeing to this immigration deal, basically signing up to a net zero coordination, which means that if Keir Starmer gets fed up with what Ed Miliband is doing in terms of the price of energy, we're going to now have to consult Europe before we can leave our net zero policies. What have we got in return for this? Well, they talk about some sort of deal on e-gates. That's not even in the power of the European Union. It's individual nation states that decide what happens with e-gates.
That's interesting.
So we've got basically nothing in return for giving away all of these powers. And I think their calculation is that we're all so bored about talking about Brexit that we're just not going to notice. But certainly listeners to your programme, listeners to Talk over the last 24 hours, listeners and viewers, they certainly have noticed.
They're furious.
The Sun has noticed.
They're furious.
Yeah.
They're furious. People basically said, hang on, what was that vote for, the referendum in 2016 when 17.4 million people voted to leave the EU? What was that for? What was that for? And how dare this Prime Minister,
I don't know anymore.
This Prime Minister come in and act as if it didn't happen?
Yeah.
I mean, what is he thinking?
Well, I tell you what he is thinking, is this is just, they're now going to be annual summits. So this isn't going to be the first sellout. I reckon we'll be here in a year's time, depending on how public reacts to this one. There'll be another sellout next year and another sellout the year afterwards. This is going to be a salami slicing of the Brexit freedoms that we fought so hard for.
When you now hitch your wagon to reform, I mean, in the manner of politics, this has been a good couple of days for reform. I mean, the more he does things like... The more Starmer behaves like this, selling us out to Brussels, the better it is for reform.
Yeah. Well, I'm not unhappy about that. I'm, a Reform supporter, but I'd rather we weren't having to fight these battles, because I thought this was a battle we'd won, but clearly we haven't.
I said in my monologue, in the end, to sum up this deal, isn't it basically this? We are once again now paying billions of pounds to the Brussels Club, to the EU, for the privilege of having to obey their millions of rules and regulations and diktats. So we are once again, paying 100%. Brussels a ton of money to be bossed around by Brussels, by the EU, which, if memory serves, is why people wanted to leave.
Yeah, 100% right. And, the negotiations were completely false as well. Do you know when you normally have in negotiations, you have two people on opposite sides of the table, one representing one set and one representing... Keir Starmer was on their side of the table. He was on their side of the table. He's always believed in European Union. He's always believed in freedom of movement. He's always believed in dynamic alignment, all these other incomprehensible EU expressions which are meant to hide the fact that they're in charge and we're not. Yeah. He's always believed in that. Who was on Britain's side of the table? There was no one there, because he was already on Ursula's... Well, he was on Ursula von der Leyen's lap, I'm afraid. I won't go as far as Rod Liddle did in a little while ago.
Yeah, please don't. Once in one show, that'll do. But seriously, he just loves to be close to the EU. It's in his DNA, isn't it?
He doesn't believe in much, but he does believe in that.
Yeah, and somebody made a good analogy that I repeated to Rod Liddle. He's such a terrible negotiator, right? This was supposed to be a negotiation that happened on Monday. Sat down there in central London with all the EU officials, Ursula and the gang. The night before, he gives a press conference in which he announces, definitely signing a deal tomorrow, 100% signing a deal, which is the equivalent of a guy, walking into a second-hand car dealer and saying to the second-hand car dealer person, I see all your cars there, well, give it your best shot, sell them to, but before you do attempt to sell me any of these cars, let me assure you that at the end of this negotiation, I will definitely be buying a car off you.
Yeah,
it's not a good starting point.
Well, worse than that, probably already give him the money.
Yeah.
So here's £3,000. I just want something at the end of the weekend, please.
That's basically it, isn't it? Here's the money. I'm definitely signing the deal. Right, let's start the negotiations. It's just, he's a terrible negotiator.
He is a terrible.
This business, apparently they did sit down on the understanding that the sellout of our fishing rights would last for 4 years. The first thing that old Urs and her crew said was, actually, we've had to think about this. We want it to be 12 years. Keir Starmer went, yeah, all right. Yeah. Just
you're exactly
no problem, Jeff. 12, whatever, 50, whatever you want.
But your second-hand car analogy is absolutely right on this front as well, because these things were added at the last minute by them.
Yeah.
So basically, they were adding extra conditions at the last minute because they knew Keir Starmer already in Saturday's Times and in that announcement you mentioned on Sunday evening had already sold out that he needed an agreement. He wasn't prepared to walk away.
That's what a second-hand car dealer will do at the last moment. Oh well, of course the spare tyre will be an extra £100, and that will be. Yeah, you're right.
And can I say what makes my blood boil most of all?
Yes.
What's the biggest issue we face at the moment? It's small boat crossings.
Yes.
And Macron kept saying, I would love to help you more, but it's a European issue. So why wasn't this
at the centre of these talks?
That should have been the centre of the deal. And we offered Macron last week a state visit. So basically we've given everything to them and we've got nothing, almost nothing back.
The paucity of
said I was angry earlier. Now you're getting me angry again. This is not helping my blood pressure.
That's what I'm here for. No, the paucity of what we have received in return for for the oceans of everything we've given to the EU is extraordinary. We've got basically nothing. And I tweeted yesterday that for the past 7 years or whatever it is, I've been very, very proud to join the queue of independent nations as we wait for passport control. I don't want to stand in the EU queue. I don't like it. I never did. So you can stick that concession where the sun don't shine. And also, it's extremely feeble and not actually viable because, as you say, This is one area where the EU doesn't decide passport control into separate countries. So all the countries in the EU could turn around and say, actually, we're not going to give the Brits a deal. But that so much does not matter, does it? Just very, very strange times. We're going to talk about the migrant crisis, funnily enough, next. But as I said earlier, one thing you can say about this Brexit deal is that Keir Starmer has finally stopped the boats. British fishing boats. We'll talk about the migrants crisis next. We've got some extremely interesting details on that, so stay tuned.
This is just the latest, let's face it, ridiculous disaster that Labour have presided over.
This ought to be the end of the Labour Party. If there was any justice, this would be the end of the Labour Party. I mean, throughout my 14 years in Parliament, I saw that the Labour Party in Parliament was completely disconnected from the working people they purported to represent. They have gone on and on and on about niche cultural issues in ways that I know, because I'm from a working class background, that normal working people are not interested in those niche cultural issues.
You know, Keir Starmer was too busy swigging champagne yesterday afternoon than come into Parliament to explain his actions and to be scrutinised democratically by MPs and peers, which is outrageous. And this whole thing now, they've introduced sort of clauses that, quite frankly, I think in the sense of democratic freedom and openness and free trade, we absolutely have to scrutinise and run the slide rule over. It is wrong. He didn't have the mandate to do that. You know, he could only say he had the mandate to do that if he was honest with the public.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Tim Montgomery. What do I call political commentator now?
You call me sir. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Well, of course. It goes without saying.
Yeah, political commentator, I think. Yeah, the BBC haven't known what to call me since I've moved to Reform.
I've heard they got a few names for you.
Yeah, just as you probably have. Yeah.
No. So we're going to talk about the migrant crisis, but I thought this was an extraordinary story. I think it was in the Times over the weekend. So we keep hearing, don't we? Smash the gangs, smash the gangs. Hang on, let me talk among yourselves. I was just going to talk to my production team. Have you heard it?
I have heard it.
Yeah, we'll play it. If we can.
I'd like to hear it.
Anyway. last week, experts were called, apparently addressed the cabinet, the senior government figures, and they told Two-Tier Keir and his crew that the Smash the Gangs strategy is, and I quote, unlikely to have a significant impact on the high number of migrants crossing the channel illegally. Ministers have been warned that. And they also told the cabinet, these experts, that the idea that gangs can be smashed is rather fanciful because they're embedded on the continent, and to suggest that numbers will fall anytime soon is a fallacy. So the government last week was stared in the face and told, smash the gangs is a load of crap. We've always known it. Everybody has always known it. It's just headline hunting, because smash the gangs looks good in a headline. It's a good soundbite.
We probably tested well in a focus group. And
exactly
that's why
right.
They use it.
It sounds good. But since last July, they've smashed no gangs, none whatsoever, haven't found any. And if they do smash them, as I've always said, I've said it to you before, and I think you've agreed, if you don't stop the migrants, it's the rule of supply and demand. So if you smash the gangs tonight, and the migrants are still coming, there'll be new gangs tomorrow. Yeah. That's why Smash the Gangs is...
The numbers crossing the channel at the moment are record levels.
Over 12,000. We're 40% up on last year. Smash the Gangs is a catastrophe.
Yeah, well, it is a catastrophe. And the thing is, I don't know what you think about generally the battle against crime, Kev.
I think they should start it.
Exactly. And the fact is that most people will say that petty crime is at unprecedented levels, and on the other side is that organised crime has never been stronger in this country and in the continent. The police forces on both sides of the channel have failed against organised crime. So if you were to even begin to smash the gangs, you'd have to do it in a coordinated effort across Europe, which takes us back to what we were talking about, the non-Brexit deal that Keir Starmer signed in the last 24 hours. The government isn't serious. No. It's not serious.
You're right.
Smash the gangs is a slogan. You could begin to smash organised crime, but it would take a Herculean effort, which they're not even willing to begin. So stop talking about smash the gangs. You're not serious. Find another way of stopping the boats, because otherwise you're just taking us for fools once again.
And you can smash all the gangs you like. As I say, just like any other business, people smuggling operates along these lines, supply and demand. Well, as long as there is a demand, the supply will manifest itself. So you can go around, you can arrest tonight, I don't know, 10,000 people smugglers. Tomorrow, because there are tens of thousands of migrants waiting on the North French coast around Calais, there will be new people smuggling gangs. This is the wrong focus. What the government should be doing is not worried too much about smashing the gangs. If you can smash them, great. But what they should be doing is trying to stop the migrants.
Yeah. And how do you do that? You take them to places like Rwanda. The problem with the Rwanda scheme that the last Tory government had was Rwanda talked about only taking hundreds of people, and we know how many thousands are crossing the channel all the time. So what you need is better deport them immediately to processing centres far away from Britain. There has to be a downside for them trying to cross the channel, and at the moment there isn't that downside.
There is no deterrent whatsoever. They're sort of trying to boast a little bit today, the government, because a guy called Ahmed Ebid has been sentenced to 22 years for serious people smuggling. But don't get too excited, folks. It's good that they got this guy, don't get me wrong. He's an Egyptian fisherman, funnily enough, who came here a couple of years back, and again, he started up a business, illegal people smuggling. 12 million quid he made, right?
Wow.
Check this guy.
We're doing the wrong thing, Kev.
He's an asylum seeker who arrived on a small boat illegally with his wife and his 12-year-old kid. We were paying for his rather nice flat in West London from where he operated this illegal...
So we were paying for his flat?
And we were paying benefits for his family.
And he was operating this business.
£12 million he made, yes. So that is...
People are laughing at us.
That is a snapshot of the swirling mass of the nonsense of this migrant crisis. This guy's an illegal migrant who we allowed to stay because he claimed asylum. And by the way, his CV included the fact that when he tried to break into Italy with a ton of cannabis, he got 6 years. But we let him stay. We let him stay. Those Iranian nationals arrested 2 weeks ago, Isabel Oakshott and I said, I bet you every single one of them is an illegal migrant. The government wouldn't tell us. Yeah. It might affect the investigate. Rubbish. Yeah. Rubbish. They didn't tell us because they were embarrassed to guess. So far, it turns out that indeed 4 of them are asylum seekers who came here illegally, and I guarantee you it will, in the fullness of time, emerge that all of them are. Yeah. So these people are coming...
When they don't tell us stuff, you know they're hiding.
It's embarrassing, yeah. So these people come here, we over-generously allow them to stay. Oh, you're an asylum seeker, fair enough. By the way, what war and torture is happening in Egypt? Not a whole lot, I don't think. So this guy was like, we allow them to stay. And some of them, at least, as we've discussed in the last couple of weeks, use our generosity, take our money, our benefits, our property money that we pay them, and they hatch plans to cause us harm. It's good, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. And yeah, all that laughing you can hear in the background is the world laughing at us.
The world is laughing at us. Tim, it's a pleasure to have you on board, as always. Thank you for not swearing. Thank you.
Thank you for calling me a political comedian at the beginning of the show.
I said comedian. Oh, no, I did not.
You'll be hearing
his views are funny.
You'll be hearing from my lawyer.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you on board, mate, seriously. Tim Montgomery, the fabulous Tim Montgomery, he'll be back next week for more insults from me. Now, next up, we're going to be joined by Dame Andrea Jenkins, the Reform UK's new Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire. Going to ask her about the Brexit betrayal and Lucy Connolly. So lots to talk about with Andrea. That next, stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In about half an hour, I'll be taking your calls. 03444991000. Particularly keen to hear what you think about the Brexit betrayal. Obviously, it's been raging since yesterday, that story, but it's still a burning issue. I believe our Prime Minister has outrageously sold us down the river. I think he's betrayed 17.4 million people who voted for Brexit, and I don't think he has any idea what he's done. I really don't. Where does he get this idea that, the whole nation's going, oh, Keir, dear Keir, could you get us closer to the EU? Could you get us into bed with Brussels? I mean, why did he think that? We voted to leave. What is the matter with this guy? Let me know what you think about that. And obviously, Lucy Connolly, the victim of two-tier justice, that poor mum who's now likely to be in jail until at least August. Her appeal to have her sentence cut failed today, the judge saying there was no case to reduce the 31 months she got for posting hurty words on Twitter. It wasn't a very nice tweet, but hey, it's a stupid tweet. People who actually took part in the riots got less. People who threw bricks, who tried to set fire to mosques, got 2 years. Lucy got 2 years, 7 months for writing some nasty words hundreds of miles away. Where's the justice in that? One of the Telford rape gang, one of the Telford rape gang guys got convicted of raping an underage girl. Paedophile rape. 2 years. 7 years less than Lucy. This is insane. Nobody should ever go to jail for what they write on social media in a free democracy, if you ask me. 03444991000. So lots to talk about with you guys. And also, in about 20 minutes, I'm going to be talking about a huge row as it erupted at Eurovision over alleged vote rigging. Spain and Belgium, they think that the vote was fixed in Israel's favour so that Israel did better than they actually did. I say that if there was any vote rigging going on, it was to make sure that Israel didn't win. They came second just behind Austria. But the organisers definitely didn't want Israel to win, because that would mean, by the rules of the competition, next year's event would have to be in Tel Aviv. As Graham Norton said, nobody wanted that. So was the vote rigged to make sure Israel didn't win? There was certainly one hell of a lot of anti-Semitism, of Jew hatred, swirling around that auditorium in Switzerland on Saturday night. We'll talk about that in about 20 minutes. But first, a very warm welcome to the show, to my favourite politician, I think I can say that now. She is the new Reform Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins. Welcome, Andrea.
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing? I'm
very, very well. Well, there's a couple of very big stories that we need to discuss. I obviously want to talk to you about the Brexit betrayal, which I think is quite shocking. But first, can I get your take on Lucy Connolly that I was just talking about? Now, this is a woman, a mum, who tweeted something I think we can all accept was not her finest hour. It wasn't a very nice tweet at the height of the Southport riots, talking about burn them and deport them and all this kind of stuff. She later pulled that tweet down, apologised. She was very worked up because she had lost her own son, her own little boy, a year earlier in tragic circumstances. And she was very emotional. She felt for the poor 3 mums who'd lost their little girls in that horrific murder. So she was very sort of worked up. So she made a mistake. 31 months for hurty words on Twitter. She was hundreds of miles away from Southport. She got less than people throwing bricks and trying to set fire to mosques. This is insane. This is two-tier justice gone mad. The judge should have let her out today, shouldn't he?
Yes. Absolutely, Kevin. I mean, it's disgusting. She's clearly a political prisoner. And I think it says something about British society when, sex offenders, perverts and child groomers don't go to prison, but Lucy Connolly is still in prison. It's degradation of our society. And how low can we go? It's terrible. I think it's a stain on our history when things like this happen. And let's face it, I'm a mum myself, and I think any parent out there, the Southport murders of these innocent children affected everybody and every parent. And it cuts deep, doesn't it, when you're a parent yourself? And she's lost a child. Clearly she was hurting, and she just ranted on social media, which she later took down. And it doesn't deserve for her to be a political prisoner.
Yeah, and, I had her husband is a Tory councillor in Northampton, Ray Connolly, on my show earlier, Raymond, and he was explaining that it's been devastating for them because he's had to bring up their 12-year-old kid, and the kid's not responding well to the absence of her mum and everything. So, it's a really tragic situation, and if she had to go to jail, I think we could conclude she's learnt her lesson by now. They should have let her out. But of the 385 people that went to jail with indecent haste after those riots, in court charged, banged up within about 5 days, 12 went to jail for hurty words on social media. Yeah. I think in a Western democracy, no one should ever go to jail for what they write on Twitter, don't you think?
No, I agree. And look at the situation with Hugh Edwards last year, downloading child porn. Yet he was let off. Where is the justice in this?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. As I say, when you take on board the fact that many of these rioters who actually were hurling bricks at the police, trying to set fire to mosques and migrant hotels. They got lighter sentences than Lucy for some few rather ill-chosen words hundreds of miles away on Twitter. Just totally wrong. Now, I want to...
And it's because, no doubt, she's not a member of the Labour Party, she's an opposition political party. I think that's added to.
Exactly right. You're well aware, or you'll be more aware than most, that I am aware as well. It is now actually illegal in Britain to be right-wing, to be right of centre. You get sent to jail. Now,
I haven't done my campaign. I've got a court case now from the opposition. It's getting crazy.
Oh, my God. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. I just want to play you one last piece of footage that I think will take your breath away. This is the Prime Minister today, asked about Lucy Connolly's case after the judge decided she'll serve her full 31 months. Have a look at this.
I'm not across the details of the particular case, but let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely. I'm equally, though, against incitement to violence against other people. That has long been an offence in our country, and rightly so. And so I say, don't know the details of this case, but free speech, yes. Incitement to violence, no.
Did you note that there, Andrea? I'm not across the details.
Such a hypocrite, isn't he?
That's a lie. That's just a lie.
Inciting violence to the Jewish community, as we've seen the last couple of years, haven't we?
And that's a lie. I'm not across the details of this case. Everyone's talking about this. Why would he say such a stupid... It's a little boy lie. And then he goes on to say, I am in favour of freedom of speech. Well, Keir, if you're in favour of freedom of speech, how about you stop locking people up for what they write on Twitter?
Let her out, absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Well, let's move on to his other howler this week, which is just atrocious. The Brexit betrayal. He's basically sold us down the river on every single count. We now have got to pay Brussels, once again, billions of pounds for the privilege of being bossed around by the EU's millions of rules and regulations. We're back in the club. We haven't got any voting rights. We're just going to be bossed around for everything he conceded, the fishing rights, farming rights, trading with food. Sausages will now be allowed to be sold on the continent, apparently. Big deal. For everything that he conceded, this plethora of concessions he made, is it me, or did we get absolutely nothing back of any interest whatsoever? We got nothing back, did we?
As usual with the EU deals, we saw it with David Cameron, didn't we, etc. I mean, look, I've been fighting for Brexit for years, as you know, Kevin. I in Parliament, I've stood against the Remainers. We saw Starmer at the time working with Bercow, who was the Speaker, to try and stop us getting Brexit through. So we had a major fight standing up for the 17 million people who voted to leave. And the fact that he can do this without so much as a vote, is a democracy denier to me. And as you mentioned, it's going to cost £16 billion of taxpayers' money in this first year. I mean, yeah, you've got Boris on there. Look how he fought for Brexit. Look how Nigel fought for Brexit. And Starmer comes in. But let's face it, we all did warn if Starmer gets in that he would roll back. And I was a Spartan. I voted against the Windsor framework as well. But I think it just demonstrates that trust in politicians has sunk even further lower, hasn't it?
Did you hear what he said? He said when he triumphantly announced this deal that he actually agreed to before he even entered the negotiations. He gave a press conference the night before saying, yeah, we're definitely going to sign the deal tomorrow. So, it's no wonder they threw in a few late flankers. So they suddenly said, we're going to give you 4 years, 4 years fishing rights. Actually, we want 12. So he just went, oh, yeah, all right. But what he actually said, Andrew, was this. He said, I'm delivering what you voted for last year, as in the Labour government. Yeah, no reference to what 17.4 million people voted for in 2016, which was to leave the EU. This guy is rejoining. He is betraying what the British people voted for. This is a disgusting attack on the UK's democracy, I think.
Completely agree. And as I said, I saw him in Parliament working to stop us delivering Brexit in the first place. So this should not come as any surprise, actually. This is why I think we need reform to grow, keep getting more power in the elections next year as well, in any by-elections. And so we can get into power in 4 years' time, reverse this, and finally deliver a true Brexit. But I mean, looking at fishing rights, I think it's very sad that, look, my late grandfather was a fisherman. Walter was a fisherman. I've spoke to some former fishermen the last few days, and they're angry about this. But I think it's very sad. Look at the fishing industry. It has been treated badly for years, unfortunately, and not being able to fish properly in our own waters. And now the EU vessels have got precedence over ours, really, haven't they? And they can fish for the next 12 years. It's just wrong. When are we going to start putting British people first and British interests first? That's what I'd like to know. Yes,
and Starmer also, he went into these negotiations, no guns blazing, basically accepted everything. Yes. And seems to feel that the British people, that this is
just what... Just as Theresa May did, though. Do you remember those moments? Yeah. I mean, look, she was agreeing to everything, wasn't she? It was Brexit in name only. That's why I told her to resign. And, I don't know why people have such a love-in with the EU. What's wrong with sovereignty? I mean, we've, again, become a rule taker, haven't we, with the EU? And we're paying for that pleasure of them telling us what to do.
We've rejoined. We've got all the disadvantages of being a member, but we don't now have the advantage of being a voter at the table. We are literally, as you say, we are a rule taker with no say in the rules. But where do you think he gets this idea that that's what the British people want?
I think, look, we've seen it so many times with politicians across the board, really, haven't we? That they end up in their ivory tower. They're so out of touch with the British public that I think they look down on them, really. Look at during Brexit, how many of us for supporting Brexit got called racist, got called bigots, got called thick, and that's continued. This is how, let's face it, they see British people who voted to leave. They think they know better. And this is, I think all liberals are like this, actually. London-centric liberals, whether it's Labour Party, whether it's the One Nation lot of the Conservatives, or whether it's the Lib Dems. This is how they view British people, especially the working class British people.
Well, Andrea, I'm looking at my switchboard now and remembering it last night. It was almost on fire last night. And I've asked around. I've been to the pub. I've done one of my scientific surveys. And I haven't met anybody who isn't absolutely seethingly furious about what Keir Starmer has done. He's betrayed Brexit. He's ignored the vote of the British people to leave the EU. He has hooked us up again to that sclerotic organisation, and we've had to give them billions of pounds just to be bossed around by them again. I think he's going to pay a heavy price for this. I don't think he realises just how catastrophically unpopular what he's done is.
Do you know, I don't think he cares, because he's going to use these next 4 years to get what he wants, the vision of Britain in his eyes, which means this close alignment with the EU going back in. It means that the trade unions control Britain. And it means that, you know, those who's got aspiration, they work hard, do the right thing, they're punished. And that's what it feels like under Starmer's Britain.
And you can do your party political thing now. What will reform? I mean, Nigel Farage wrote a rather good article in the Daily Express today calling it, you know, an abject surrender, which is exactly what it is. But what will reform sell to the public about what you'll do about what Starmer's done here?
No, we would reverse it without a doubt. I mean, look, Nigel, it's been his whole career fighting to leave the EU, hasn't it? 30, 40 years he's been doing this. I've been doing it for nearly 2 decades as well. And so I've worked with, you know, Nigel and Richard on the Brexit campaign. I know how passionate they are these last 8 years that I've known them. You know, I know that they're fuming about this, and we're not going to take it lying down lightly. We will come back fighting, and we will deliver for the public. I mean, what I'm trying to do on a local level, actually, Kevin, is try and restore that trust, because, as I said, trust is at an all-time low and apathy is at an all-time high. People have lost their freedom of speech. They've lost democracy by what's happened the last few days. And people are skint, let's face it.
Yeah.
People are struggling. So it's not a good place to be at the moment in Britain. So I'm trying to restore that trust. I've even said that my committee meetings, we should have the same scrutiny as MPs do. My meetings are going to be broadcast. How everyone votes is going to be recorded, because we need to hold politicians at every level to account to make sure that they deliver.
Good for you.
I think the time's gone now that where you promise things and you don't deliver. You know,
yeah, transparency is important to get politicians to do what they actually say with the tickets they ran on, because so often they betray their constituencies in that way. Can I just ask you a couple of questions before you go, Andrea, about things in Greater Lincolnshire, how your Mayor Oriel ship is going? Are you because you said you were going to take on the DEI obsession, you're going to get rid of that, you're going to cut back on expenses, etc. Are you encountering opposition from the blob, from the establishment?
I mean, did you see the Independent article, the hatchet job on me, saying that there's no DEI officers? What they failed to mention, even though I did tell them.
They got a new name for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. They just packaged it as a new name. That they obviously saw reform coming, didn't they? And they've got these new names. So we've got a new council leader who's officially sworn in as council leader the next couple of days. I've been working with him. We now control Lincolnshire County Council. We're having a Lincolnshire Doge under Lincolnshire County Council. It's not called Doge, it's called more of an English name. But it's going to do what it says on the tin. It's about scrutiny. But even as a mayoral level, I mean, I'll give an example. You know, the department wanted to organise, the Combined Authority wanted to organise a dinner with businesses, etc., which it was going to cost $4,000. And I said, where is this at? And so I've said, spoke with them. I've got a great chief operating officer, actually. He suggested, let's hold it at the local college, let them do the food and showcase the college. So that's what we're doing to, you know, bring businesses together and other things as well. I mean, I've been even looking at the scrutiny of the recruitment process. One of the candidates' partners has applied for a cushy number, a part-time role at 40 grand a year, has ended up in the final sift. And so I'm ensuring that, that there's true scrutiny. I'm putting an end to nepotism in politics. I want everything to be transparent. This person might be the best person for the job, but I like to see checks and balances. I like to see why these people were narrowed down, because to me, it's about transparency now. And regarding diversity officers, we're coming for you. We're making sure that every penny of taxpayers' money is well spent.
And as in Durham, I think the Reform Council is going to get rid of these as well. But in Durham, we learned that all councillors that are elected, before they sort of take their seats, they have to go on climate change education courses. Presumably, you won't be having any of those in Lincolnshire, will you?
I very much doubt it, to be honest. But look, remember, they do stuff like this with MPs and ensure that MPs, what's it called?
Well, it's a sort of it's a group thing, isn't it? You've got
exactly. And so, there's a whole industry out of this, isn't there? Let's face it, an industry out of this woke nonsense. I mean, I was in Leeds today. It was the Real Estate Infrastructure and Investment Summit, and all the mayors across the UK was speaking. I spoke, I laid out my vision for Greater Lincolnshire, and I also said I'm setting up a transport for Greater Lincolnshire, and unlike Sadiq Khan's, what's loaded with diversity officers, there won't be one on mine. This is actually about decision makers, and people won't get paid. They're doing it for the love of the county, to ensure that we get Lincolnshire moving.
You're going to storm it, Andrea. It's really great to talk to you, as always. Come back and see me soon. The brilliant Dame Andrea Jenkins there, who is the new mayor, the anti-woke, anti-DEI reform mayor of Greater Lincolnshire. 0344499 1000. Anything she was talking about, give me a call. When we come back, we're going to talk about Eurovision, which turned into a really unpleasant swirling mass of anti-Semitism, to be honest with you. And if it's going to be like that, let's just cancel it. Really. We'll talk about that after this break.
Many of his colleagues at the BBC would probably think along somewhat similar lines, though probably with a bit more nuance than he did. But they're the sort of people who've got the self-discipline and they understand a binding undertaking not to put their thumb in the scales and not to start advertising their own views when they are there specifically to be impartial. Right. As we saw with Emily Maitlis, her feet hardly touched the ground after she'd given a rant which very much betrayed her views.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. He's been waiting too long, so let's go straight over to my next guest. He's the editor of the Jewish Chronicle, Paul Harris. Welcome, Paul. Sorry to keep you.
Point of accuracy, I'm the editor of the Jewish Telegraph.
Did I say, I did that again, didn't I? I'm really sorry. Paul Harris is the editor of the Jewish Telegraph. I've got it going through my head because I know I made that mistake again, and now I've done it again. My apologies. Editor of the Jewish Telegraph. Let me ask you first of all, Paul, about Gary Lineker. We hear today that with a view to his anti-Semitic sharing of an anti-Semitic Jew-hating Instagram post, that the Metropolitan Police have received complaints and they are considering a criminal investigation. Personally, I'm not a fan of hate crimes, but if they must exist, surely this tweet, or rather this Instagram post, may qualify?
I'm sure it would. I've spoken on this show before. I didn't believe Gary Lineker when he apologised. He's an intelligent man. He knew what he was doing when he retweeted the image of a rat. Most people, a lot of school children, would know what that meant, and he deserves to be investigated. The only disappointment for me is, firstly, that he was actually allowed to continue in his role on Saturday as a pundit for the Cup final, and that he's actually still going to appear on Match of the Day this weekend. He should have been booted out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a strange kind of aura to what's going on here because, as you say, he is going to be allowed to do his final game, his final Match of the Day. That's on Sunday after 26 years. But let's make no mistake about this. This guy is leaving in disgrace. He is leaving under an anti-Semitic cloud. I agree with you. I think you and I discussed this the other night. I don't believe him when he says, I had no idea that the Nazis used rats as Jewish imagery during the Nazi years. I don't believe him. This is a guy who just 2 days before sharing that Instagram post, had given an interview to the Daily Telegraph. It appeared on Saturday, in which he said, "It is very important to know your history." Now, a person who thinks that is unlikely and who regularly tweets about Germany and Nazism, as we know, it's unlikely that he didn't know, had no idea about the rat imagery. As you say, Paul, I don't agree with. I don't believe him.
Gary Lineker is an intelligent man. His generation of footballers were very often not educated. He was a grammar school boy. He will have learnt history. I don't believe him at all. And I think it also sends out a message while the BBC has terminated his contract, and they have terminated it. Let's be honest, he's not leaving under his own terms. He nevertheless is being allowed to continue. He should not have fronted the Cup final on Saturday amid this controversy, and he certainly shouldn't have been allowed to continue this weekend with Match of the Day. I think the BBC really wanted to prove that it meant what it's saying. Then the message should have gone out that he was not welcome anymore, and he should not be appearing at all. And I think most Jewish people would feel that.
And some might conclude that his, I'll have to say, alleged anti-Semitism, although it seems fairly clear to me, was allowed to foster at an organisation, the BBC, which isn't known for its pro-Israel stance. Frankly, in some circles is a bit of a hotbed of anti-Semitism itself. So Gary Lineker's attitudes are tolerated, almost encouraged at the state broadcaster.
Well, of course they would. I mean, Danny Cohen has told me in the past, he's told other people, and for those who don't know, Danny Cohen is a former head of BBC TV. He insists there is anti-Semitism coursing through the corridors of the BBC, and I think this is just another example of it. We have to say Gary Lineker is allegedly anti-Semitic, but we'll leave people to draw their own conclusions. He's got form when it comes to Israel. Many of his comments about what we must remember is a Jewish state border on the anti-Semitic. So, as I say, people can draw their own conclusions about Gary Lineker and his attitude to Jews in general.
And of course, in this interview he gave to the Daily Telegraph, he said that silence on the horror of Gaza, to maintain silence on the horror of Gaza means you're complicit in that horror. So what does that mean when it comes to his complete silence after October the 7th? He was completely silent then. So do we conclude that he was complicit in the horror of the October the 7th atrocity?
Of course, it's blatantly hypocritical, isn't it? Why did he not speak out then? And it's pretty obvious that whether he's a supporter of Hamas, he certainly is not unsympathetic to what has happened. Otherwise, he would have spoken out. Surely, I mean, this was egregious. I mean, what a crime this was against humanity. This was terrorism at its worst. It was the worst single act of terrorism against Jews since the Holocaust. And yet Gary Lineker remains silent. Why? If he's so concerned about human rights and doing the right thing, which he obviously isn't. The man's a football pundit. He should shut up and continue just to do that and keep out of politics generally, and certainly this matter.
He should certainly, I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but if you're going to be so ignorant about the history of Nazism, imagery, etc., then yes, definitely wind your neck in. If you are well informed and intelligent on issues, then I don't think necessarily being a football pundit precludes you from talking out on issues. But this guy doesn't take the trouble to find things out.
But the main point is that he is an employee of the BBC.
Yeah.
This is totally contrary to the BBC's own policies. He should not be using social media to make political points of this sort, which are controversial. Stick to football punditry, and definitely not what he's been doing.
Absolutely. Can I also bring you, this sort of involves the BBC. I don't know if you're a Eurovision fan or if you watched the event on Saturday night. I didn't, I'll be honest with you, but I did check up on it when all of this came to light. Well, it was edited, but you could tell that some pretty revolting scenes were unfolding there. It was frankly a hotbed of anti-Semitism, the pro-Palestine sentiments being bellowed in that auditorium, spilled over into the kind of hatred that you and I know and don't love. Basically, a bunch of protesters, British protesters, tried to storm the stage while the very brave Israeli singer Yuval Raphael was singing her song. Paint was thrown at her, and her entire performance was drowned out by a cacophony of boos and jeers. So that was pretty revolting in itself. The broadcasters, you can't specifically blame the BBC for this because it's done centrally, but they stand accused of editing it down so you could barely hear the booing or the cheering. You couldn't really see what was going on. But this was all happening. Despite all of that, rather hearteningly, fantastically, Israel came second and absolutely stormed it on the public vote. They won the public vote. So around the voting countries, it seems that many people, the ordinary public members, stand with Israel. They still support Israel, which is good to know. Now, the woke nations that took part in this, Spain and Belgium, have now demanded an investigation because they say that Israel doing so well, coming second, must have been rigged. The voting must have been rigged. So deep-seated is their pro-Palestinian sentiments. Now, what I say, Paul, is this. If there was any vote rigging going on, it was for the opposite reason. I suspect, and I have no compunction about accusing Eurovision of playing dirty tricks, because I know the way that organisation works. I suspect that it's possible that Israel could have won that competition, and yet the organisers, the last thing in the world they wanted was for Israel to win. In the end, they were pipped into second place by Austria, and Graham Norton, the BBC commentator host, made the point that you could almost sense the palpable sense of relief in the auditorium that next year's Eurovision Song Contest wouldn't have to be held in Tel Aviv. So if there's any chicanery going on, I reckon it's not to make Israel do better than they actually did. I think it's to make them do worse than they actually did.
Absolutely. And like you, I certainly didn't bother to watch Eurovision. I watched to the end to see what the voting was and to listen to the Israeli number. I mean, frankly, most of the entries were what I describe as dross. Certainly not, as I remember it, from 40 or 50 years ago, and we actually had some decent songs. Israel reached the position that it did because the song was damn good. It was the favourite, and it was a really, really good song. Isn't it interesting, though, that Spain has taken this stand when Spain actually finished 24th, and the public voted Spain actually gave Israel full marks, 12 points. That's really quite amusing, isn't it? I think this is a case of sour grapes. And as far as I could see, I mean, somebody might correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand from what I've seen that the introduction to the Israeli song made no mention of the fact that the performer was a survivor of the Nova Festival, and the song was a tribute to what happened there and a tribute to the survivors and remembering those who died. As far as I know, there was no mention of that whatsoever. That's interesting too.
It is. And Yuval Raphael, you're right to bring that up. I mean, her story is extraordinary. She survived that massacre at the Nova Music Festival by burying herself in the dead bodies of her friends so that she couldn't be spotted that she was still alive. And that's what she did. So that alone should have earned her an absolute tidal wave of support. And I think that story was known among the public. That's why they voted for Israel in great numbers. By the way, pop fact, while Israel won the public vote, Britain got null points. They got no points whatsoever. We came, I think, 19th out of 26, so we had nothing to write home about. I think Israel's performance, their achievement in coming second was amazing. My suspicion is they won. But they didn't want the competition to be in Israel next year. But my last point really, Paul, is this. What I saw from what I've read about what happened on Saturday, this allegedly fun song contest, a camp load of fun, just turned into a very nasty political occasion full of pro-Palestine Jew hatred. And if it's going to be like that, if these nations in their wokery and their left-wing love of Palestine are going to be like this, then I think we should scrap the entire event.
But we know that the Eurovision for years has been all about politics, nothing to do with the music whatsoever. I mean, I've always found it really amusing just to watch the voting because you can predict which countries are going to vote for which other. Their neighbours vote for each other. We know which are going to give nul point to others. It's quite straightforward, really. It's not about the music most of the time, which is why the public vote actually means more than the jury votes. I think we have to take that into consideration. And it was interesting also that Graham Norton mentioned that thank goodness the final would not be in Tel Aviv next year. I think he must have known quite well it wouldn't have been in Tel Aviv anyhow. It would have been in Jerusalem. I'm just wondering if that was a deliberate comment too.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wondered about that. Why would you say Tel Aviv? But anyway, Paul, once again, you are the editor of the Jewish Telegraph. I very much apologise for my mistake. I've got it in my head now. It's like a worm in my head. I put, come on again, and I promise I will never do that again. It's really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Paul Harris there, editor of the Jewish Telegraph. Get it right, Kev. Next, we'll take a couple of your calls, and then we're going to talk about how rich the king is. He's worth 640 million quid. What? Anyway, your calls next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about the King's wealth in just a second, but a quick call. Let's talk to Les in Birmingham. Les, you want to talk about Lucy Connolly. What would you like to say?
Yes, indeed. Yes, I just wanted to say that I think she's been treated absolutely appallingly. What she said on the internet, I don't agree with. I mean, that's not very nice. Well, it's a horrible thing to say about the burning and stuff. But the thing is, it was just written down. You don't know whether she said it. If it had been a verbal recording or on TV or whatever, did she say it with venom, banging the table, or was it just a throwaway remark? You don't know.
I think two things, Les. I think she was very worked up, very emotional. She lost her own child, a little boy, a year earlier, so she was very much empathising with the poor mums, the three mums who lost their daughters in those horrific murders in Southport. So she was feeling for them. She was very worked up, very emotional, and she hit the keyboards. So that's the reason she did it. Afterwards, she thought I was a bit over the top. She pulled it down. She apologised. But that's not good enough. She got 31 months. Now, I agree with you, Les. I don't approve of what she tweeted. No one does. I don't think she approves of it herself. She thought she knows it was a mistake. But I don't think in this country, in a free Western democracy, anyone should be going to jail for hurty words on social media. I just think in any circuit, I don't care what you write on social media, nobody should go to jail for that.
Yeah, she's accused of being a racist as well. And I don't see any of that at all.
I don't think she is.
No, but what I'm saying, if she'd have said, let's deport all the, Chinese tomorrow, then that's a different story. But she was talking about mass deportation, actually. That's what her words were, apparently. But that's
that. And then she said about burn these so-and-sos. That was all. But as I say, no one is condoning that tweet, least of all Lucy. But boy, oh boy, they should have let her out yesterday. They should never have. She's never gone to jail in the first place. And what she's still doing there, I just don't know. But Les, you and I are on the same page here. This is two-tier Keir's justice system. Two-tier Keir's, two-tier Britain. It's the simple as that. Les, good to talk. Thank you very much. Good call. Call me again. Les in Birmingham there. Let's go to break. And next up, the King's 640 million quid. Stay tuned.
Many of his colleagues at the BBC would probably think along somewhat similar lines, though probably with a bit more nuance than he did. But they're the sort of people who've got the self-discipline and they understand a binding undertaking not to put their thumb in the scales and not to start advertising their own views when they are there specifically to be impartial. Right. As we saw with Emily Maitlis, her feet hardly touched the ground after she'd given a rant which very much betrayed her views.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, we all love, don't we, the Sunday Times rich list, the long list of people we're all jealous of, the massive billionaires, the richest man in Britain, the 10th richest woman, etc., etc., etc. Well, what emerged in the new list published just now on Sunday was the King's personal wealth. Now, the monarchy, Her Majesty, the late Queen, she didn't really make the list. I think she once or twice was among the richest women, but she wasn't right up there. Well, the King is. His personal wealth has soared since he ascended to the throne by £30 million to a staggering £640 million. That's what King Charles is worth. That is a fortune that dwarfs that of the late Queen, who was worth a mere only £370 million. How come this guy is so filthy rich? Let's talk to the compiler of the Sunday Times Rich List, Robert Watts. Robert, thank you for joining us.
Evening, Kevin. Great to be with you.
Look, none of us expect our monarchy, our monarch, our sovereign, to be a pauper. But £640 million. We give this guy, by the way, £83 million a year to run the royal family. Well, I'm beginning to think, this country, we've got financial problems. Hey, Your Majesty, you got £640 million. Why don't you pay for the monarchy yourself? It's a plan, isn't it?
Well, on your side of the argument, if we're going to go with that, there are people who say that the king is worth a lot more money, that he's worth £2 billion plus. And those sort of people on the sort of Republican side of the argument say that, we should count the Duchy of Lancaster, that estate of his that dates back to 1265. That's his. That could be sold off. That could be funding the NHS and the education system. But in reality, we're quite conservative. We don't count the Duchy of Lancaster or a Crown estate as being the king's. It's a bit like saying that you, Kevin, that the company car that you've got downstairs,
I'll be lucky.
That's your personal property, that the mobile phone supplied by the office or the office laptop, that's part of your personal assets. These things are owned in the right of the Crown. They're not the King's playthings, so we don't count them. So that 640 number, what's it all about? Well, it's about the largest things in his personal portfolio, as we understand them, are Sandringham, the estate in Norfolk, which is worth £305 million.
Right.
So we believe a house in the estate. And then Balmoral, the person has owned about £210 million. And then there's a stock market portfolio we're led to believe it's worth about £125 million. So if you're going to take this money off him, what are you going to do? Are we going to force the king somehow to sell Sandringham and sell Balmoral? Are they actually in the national interest for our king or royal family to have those sorts of assets? A lot of people might take the view that they are.
So in a sense, by the way, I'm not signing up for a republic or anything like that. I'm just sort of putting the devil's advocate case. But so what you're saying actually is that some of that or quite a large proportion of that 640 million quid is kind of property, and it's not like anytime soon on the local estate agents, for sale, massive Norfolk estate, 300 million pounds. So in essence, that isn't really money in his skyrocket, is it, Sandringham and Balmoral? So, I mean, what does he have to play with then? About 300 million then, probably?
Not even that, actually, we don't think. The key thing to remember about the royal finances, and there'll be royalists screaming at the TV right now, I'm very confident, is they will say the royals are a national benefactor to the public finances. Why? Because the Crown Estate, all that money that vast estate, 16 billion pounds that estate generates, all of it goes straight to HMT, to the Treasury. And the King, the royal family, and the sovereign grant only gets 12% of that back. 88% of it goes into the public finances. So it's been a big year for the Crown Estate over the past year. They've sold effectively a lot of licenses to build offshore wind farms, and that's boosted the profits. And as a result, because it's fixed each year, 12% of the Crown Estate's profits goes back to the King. He'll get, I think the sovereign grant will be 132 million, about that, which is a lot of money to play with. But it depends how you look at this, Kevin. I mean, there'll be some people saying, 88% of the Crown Estate goes into fund schools and hospitals. That's great. There'll be our Republican friends will be saying, no, 100% of it should go to the public purse for Rachel Reeves to spend as she sees fit.
I don't suppose when you compile, your excellent list, that you get details. You talked about the King's investment portfolio, which apparently he did inherit from his mother. So this is an ongoing thing. I don't suppose you get to find out what his investment portfolio consists of.
I think it's fair to say we do not get every coffin split of the royal finances. But we've been led to believe in the past that it's largely FTSE 100, FTSE 250 shares. I don't think they invest in lots of go-go, fast-growing, risky companies. I would imagine. There's definitely an argument that the royals could be more transparent about their finances. That's something I think that would make my life just that little bit easier.
They should be more transparent about their finances for you.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say no. But one of the things that's certainly true is that we don't know the full cost of royal security. Because of that, now there's some people who there have been estimates ranging from about 10 to 50 million a year that could cost. Some people topically say it could be as much as 100 million. I think that is that's a bit excessive. Yeah. But still, even if you count that, you think of the enormous amount of money going from the Crown Estate into the Treasury each year, and then all the soft stuff about having a royal family, does it attract tourism, that kind of thing. It's hard when you look at the cold numbers not to think that actually financial upside for the British taxpayer is higher.
Oh yeah, I think they're a massive national asset, no doubt about that. It's just sort of so eye-catching that His Majesty the King is worth 640 million quid. Can I ask you a couple of general questions about the list, Robert, if I may, just before you go? I mean, for me, the surprising, perhaps not surprising, the interesting inclusion this year were the soaring fortunes of our migrant hotel tycoons, particularly Graham King, the Asylum King, who's got hotels and caravan parks and God knows what, whose company, thanks to our government contract, is making £4.8 million a day, and he has leapt into billionaire status now. So those guys I found interesting. For you this year, what was the biggest surprise in the list?
Billionaires falling. The biggest fall in the number of UK billionaires in the rich list's 37-year history. And it's not, there's lots of different things going on, Kevin. One of the things that a lot of people are talking about, people leaving the country. Yes, we are seeing a bit of that. People going to Dubai, people going to Switzerland, Italy, elsewhere. One of the stories I think that there's not being much talked about, which is definitely true, is that I would find, I've been doing this 10 years, my predecessor did this for many, many years longer than that. Each year we would find new billionaires coming to the UK from America, China, India, all sorts of places around the world. Those people are not now coming.
In fact, they're leaving. People are leaving, right? Billionaires.
Well, they are leaving. I mean, that's
there's an exodus.
Much talked about, but it's. I think that change to non-dom status, critical to explain that. But also, it just, if you're sitting in Houston and thinking about UK, nice. I like that. Maybe bring my family over here. Maybe float my business here on the UK stock market. Educate my children in the private schools. I'd love a bit of that. And then you say, well, no, actually, you're probably going to have to pay all tax.
Yeah. Starmer's Britain, Robert. I'll tell you, next year with Keir Starmer in charge, you'll have to do the Sunday Times poor list. You know, the 50 poorest people in Britain. I think I may be top of the list, so we'll have a chat, yeah? Great to talk to you, Robert. Thank you very much. That's Robert Watts from the Sunday Times Rich List. Back in a mo.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. There's a lot to talk about tonight, so you might want to give me a call, 03444991000. We still need to pick over the bones of that awful Brexit betrayal by Keir Starmer. He sold us down the river. 17.4 million people voted to leave the EU. That guy has secretly got us back into the EU in all but name. We're now kind of a member, only we haven't got any voting powers. We're just ordered around. We've got to pay them billions of pounds to obey their rules again. What were the past 7 years all about? 03444991000. He's sold us down the river with fishing rights, with farming, with trade, you name it. He's sold us down the river on it. Why has he done this? Why has he done this? 03444991000. Lucy Connolly, the poor lady who's doing 31 months in jail for posting hurty words on Twitter at the height of the Southport riots. What she tweeted wasn't very nice. but she didn't deserve 31 months. She shouldn't have even gone to jail. She's just had her appeal. Her appeal has failed. The judge said that there were no grounds to say that her sentence was unduly excessive, except there were. It's totally excessive. It's just ridiculous. This judge is just gaslighting us. This is a guy called Lord Holroyd, Justice Lord Holroyd. He is the guy who actually reduced the Labour peer Nazir Ahmed's jail term for sexually abusing 2 children in Rotherham. His sentence was cut by 3 years by Lord Justice Holroyd because he thought that was unduly excessive. That was for sexually abusing children, for paedophile sex offences, unduly excessive. But Lucy Connolly, who's never, by the way, been in trouble for so much as a parking ticket before she fell foul of Keir's two-tier justice system in the Southport riots that she wasn't even in. She gets 31 months for posting a nasty little tweet from hundreds of miles away. She's got less than some of the people actually throwing bricks and actually trying to set fire to mosques and migrant hotels. Actual rioters got less than what Lucy got. This is just ridiculous. 03444991000. So give me a call. Let me know what you think of all those issues. Now, former Home Secretary Suella Braverman gave an interview to the Telegraph the other day, and she said that woke policing has become a direct attack on freedom of speech, and she's right, I think. She's talking about the arrest of Julian Fawkes, the former volunteer copper who was accused of possessing Brexity things. Cops policing the tweets, not the streets. Calling on journalists Alison Pearson and Julie Bindel because of their problematical social media posts, and so on and so forth. The recording of non-crime hate incidents. If it's not a crime, why are the police recording them? If it's not a crime, what the hell has it got to do with the police? This, Suella Braverman says, is, the slow decline, the slow death of freedom of speech in this country, and our woke coppers are enforcing it. They're enforcing the death of freedom of speech in this country. Let's talk to someone who was around in the police when they used to do proper police work, when they used to solve crimes, when they used to patrol the streets and not the tweets. It is, of course, the brilliant former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley. Welcome, Pete.
You're nicked, me old sunshine. Get in the van, mind your head. Yes, said that a few times back in the day. Anyway.
You don't hear that anymore, do you, among coppers? I can imagine you knocking on Alison Pearson's door and saying, right, get in the van, you're nicked. You tweeted something 9 months ago that we don't like the look of. I mean, what is going on? Suella Braverman is right. My question to you, Peter, as an old copper, why is it that police chiefs around the country are allowing their forces, their coppers, to go round challenging people's right to post tweets, to say what they like, challenging people's right to freedom of expression? Why has this happened? How is this happening?
Okay, firstly, can I just say that Alison Pearson, the wonderful Alison Pearson, has just had a new article about her relationship with Lucy Connolly drop on the Telegraph. So if you want to go and find that, it's a very worthy read, of course. Suella Braverman is absolutely right on this issue, unshakably right, and she needs to say more, and we all need to be having this conversation. And finally, to answer your question, Kev. Okay, senior police, in fact, most of policing now is in the grip of academia. Back in 1997, when Blair said education, 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 all the ambitious cops thought, we'll have a piece of this. and off they went to university. University, can you imagine it? Police officers. And when they went to many of those left-leaning, neon Marxist establishments, they got their heads filled with a load of pseudo-intellectual claptrap, which has no relevance to policing. And for the last 30 years, they have propagated it. If you want to get promoted, go to university. They rolled it out so far that most of the frontline cops had to go to university. And I've been to those universities to see those police officers trained firsthand. I've been there. I've seen it. A few months ago, I was on the front line with the cops. I've seen it. The cops, generally speaking, on the front line, decent. The senior management, leftist, liberal, woke, dangerous people who wouldn't know a criminal if they bit them on the rear end.
Yeah, we're looking at pictures of Suella Braverman when she was Home Secretary, wandering around High Street that I know quite well, Golders Green, funnily enough. But she said that coppers are stamping on freedom of speech. And basically for this, she ended up kind of losing her job. Now, she was the Home Secretary who said, we've had an inquiry into this. I hereby now instruct every chief constable in the country to stop their officers recording non-crime hate incidents. These are when, if I phone up and say Peter Blexley just called me a nasty name and I think it was racially motivated, even though there's no basis to this, they don't bother investigating, they don't talk to me or you, they just write it down. And they just compile these lists of, shall we say, dubious incidents, usually by people, shall we say, of a right-wing persuasion, people that the police think might be a bit racist and so on and so forth. So they're kind of woke lists in a way. Now, as the Home Secretary in charge of the cops, the police forces, Suella Braverman said, right, this, if it's not a crime, this has got nothing to do with the police. So I'm instructing you, I'm ordering you all now to stop compiling lists of non-crime hate incidents. All the police chiefs, yeah, fair enough, boss, yeah, got it. And then they just ignored her and carried on. So they are obeying a higher force than their boss, than the Home Secretary.
Yes, and their directives are coming from two bodies. First of all, the College of Policing, led by the chairman, Lord Herbert. I threw a few Herberts into the back of police fans in my time. There might be another one I'd like to do exactly the same to. He defends this hugely discredited organisation. Speak to police officers in confidence, not in public, and they will tell you that organisation is a busted flush, but it's a dangerous, continuingly appalling organisation. So much of the police's ills stem from the College of Policing. The other organisation, the National Police Chiefs Council, full of the wokerati. People like John Robbins at West Yorkshire Police, who is a chief constable that wants to bring more laws in about positive discrimination. They are gripped by this liberal, nonsensical, dangerous thinking. It flows down to the front line. And last week, Kev, I put a joke on
I
Twitter.
I saw it. Yeah.
Right. It was a hysterical joke.
It was funny. It was bloody funny.
Thank you. And many, many people found it funny. Then what happened, after about a day or so, the people that don't have a sense of humour, in other words, the lunatic left, they got sight of it. Dozens of them reported me to the Metropolitan Police, Counter-Terrorism Police, and they wanted me arrested for incitement. I broke no law, none whatsoever. It wouldn't even get within 1 million miles of being one of those dreaded non-crime hate incidents. But the easily offended melted, bless them, the snowflakes that they are, and they wanted the police to do something about it. And that largely is based on the fact that in the past, the police have done stupid things like they did to Julian Fox.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I saw your tweet and people saying, no, I'm reporting you to Twitter, I'm reporting you to the police. And I tweeted back to the girl or the lady in question and said, it's called a joke. You know, it's actually a joke and a rather funny one at that. You know, lighten up. It is ridiculous. But the point is that the police will then take this seriously. That's what they do. They kind of indulge these humourless politico bores with these fatuous complaints against people like you because you dare to perhaps not be left-wing. They think that people like us, that our crime is that we're right of centre, you know, somehow or other. So, you know, it is absurd. There was a police inquiry some years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I seem to remember. I can't remember who was in charge of it, but at the end of it, he said to the police, right, the way you go about your business, first of all, you've got to stop calling people victims until the crime is proven. So in other words, if I go in and say I'm the victim of rape, the police immediately start describing me as the victim. Now, you cannot be a victim until that crime is proven, because I could be lying. Do you see what I mean? So this inquiry told the police, stop this. Stop describing people as victims as soon as they make an allegation of a crime. The police forces around the country collectively decided to ignore that and to carry on as they were. So they got form with this. They get told not to do this woke nonsense. They get told to act like coppers, you know, to stop behaving as if everybody who tells them the story of a crime is telling the truth. They get told to stop recording non-crime hate incidents, but they won't do it. They won't do it.
They are gripped by it. They are absolutely gripped by this liberal left thinking. Somebody who, yes, I think I can call them a friend, okay, who sits in the House of Lords, went to a gathering of senior police officers not so long ago, stood up, spoke about the matters that we've been talking about, urged them to change their ways, and when they were having a cup of coffee afterwards, this member of the House of Lords overheard senior police officers describing this person as dangerous. Dangerous because they challenge their woke think. Anybody who has a contradicting view, who has a dissenting or a differing voice, is broadly brushed as dangerous. So they're not going to change soon unless we get more of the likes of Suella Braverman fighting on behalf of right-thinking people and doing the right thing.
Indeed, you know, what about that case of the Julian Fawkes? Was it only last week we found out about that? Coppers, 6 coppers with tasers, sort of bursting into a 71-year-old former voluntary copper's home and basically accusing him of potential racism or race hate because of some tweet he did to suggest that some of these pro-Palestine marches may have spilled over into anti-Semitism. Oh, perish the thought. So for that, he gets his house ransacked. They find a copy of The Spectator and a book by Douglas Murray, and they say, oh, your house is full of Brexity things. You've got generations of coppers who seem to be being I don't know, brainwashed by the bosses that to be right-wing, and by the way, I don't think Julian Fawkes was particularly right-wing. Reading The Spectator doesn't make you right-wing, it makes you potentially centrist or whatever. But they think that if you're, you know, demonstrably right of centre, that's some kind of crime.
And they're so stupid, they couldn't realise that the tweet he put out was actually satirical. It was in response to a lot of traffic on Twitter or X about pro-Palestinian marches and them really being very anti-Semitic. So he then tweeted, one step away from going to Heathrow to search out for Jews. So he was being sarcastic, satirical. They took it literally and sent 6 of them round to his house. Unfortunately, Julian clearly must have felt bullied into accepting a caution, but once the Telegraph exposed this ridiculous story, that caution was expunged, set aside, got rid of. But this is what they're doing. This is why we must have to stand up and fight against this very, very damaging way of thinking, which is ruining the reputation of the police, destroying the relationship between the working man and woman and the police, and leaving the reputation of policing in absolute tatters.
Absolutely. Just watching the footage of the outrageous search of Julian Fawkes' home. And what we're talking about here, Pete, apart from just a sort of wokery now being in the police's DNA, sort of left-wing lunacy being a part of their makeup, we're talking about the death of common sense. These coppers don't show any common sense whatsoever. So 6 coppers with tasers to burst into the home of a 71-year-old man. There he is, Julian Fawkes. He looks like an enemy of the people, doesn't he? Very dangerous. They found a shopping list by his wife. So his wife became a person of interest. She then became a suspect because guess what they found on her shopping list? They found, written down, gloves, rubber gloves, bleach and tin foil. She was obviously a terrorist. No, she's a hairdresser. I mean, where is the common sense in people who look... You know, this is a nice couple live in Gillingham in Kent. Retired couple. Where is the common sense in the coppers who look at these people and go, right, let's ransack their house. Look, this woman's obviously... She's obviously a wrong one as well. This is just... It's moronic.
The special constabulary is a very important part of policing. Well-intentioned members of the public volunteer to give up their own time for no payment whatsoever to wear a police uniform, carry a warrant card and face the same risks that regular officers do. Julian Fawkes did that for over a decade. So if you work out that it's like, well, 4 hours a week, which is the minimum contribution a volunteer cop has to do, roll that over 52 weeks, so what's that, 200 hours a year, multiply that by 10. This is thousands of hours that this man gave of his own time to policing communities, trying to keep people safe and locking up bad people. And that's the way he got treated for a sarcastic, satirical tweet, which the police were too stupid to understand.
Yeah, lack of common sense, and it's going to cost Kent Constabulary dear because Julian Fawkes quite rightly is suing them, and it's an open and shut case because they have admitted they were wrong to do what they did. But if we go back to Alison Pearson, my friend and colleague on the Telegraph, a very fine columnist, it was on Memorial Sunday, Remembrance Sunday, 9:30 in the morning, while she was still in her dressing gown, 2 coppers from Essex Police bang on her door and say, oh, we got this tweet that you put out a year ago. It's very problematical. And, you know, they picked on the wrong person. She went to town on it, wrote about it and so on and so forth. In the end, Essex Police had to say, oh, yeah, no further action. But the Chief Constable of Essex then stood up and said, we did the right thing. Knocking on her door and interrogating her. No, mate, you did the wrong thing. Until they're going to learn that this is the wrong thing for the police to do, we're in trouble as a society, aren't we?
We most definitely are. The police should be protecting free speech and not policing it. And what I mean by that is, if you go to Speaker's Corner on a Sunday morning, in all likelihood, you will find Christian preachers being shouted down, hounded away from Speaker's Corner by people who are very vociferous and of different faiths, shall I say. And do the police stand there courageously and say, this is everybody's space, everybody can speak here, we're protecting free speech? No, they usher people quietly away. We see countless examples of this when anybody wants to challenge certain people of certain views and certain demonstrations. And the police are being seen increasingly to be taking a side which is not the side of the moderate majority of the people in the UK. And until they wake up and realise how wrong they're getting it, then I say shame on them.
Yeah, I think we are in trouble. We've got a lot of work to do to bring our police back into line, because I think they're working against the interests of a free, democratic Western society. They really, really are. Peter, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Peter Blexley there, former Met Police detective. What do you reckon of what he's saying? It's like the death of common sense. There's a kind of left-wing fascism about it, isn't it? You know, oh, right, have you got a copy of The Spectator? You're nicked. They put Julian Falk, 71-year-old guy, former voluntary copper, decent man, obviously, with his retired wife, living down there in Kent. They put him in handcuffs while they ransacked his house. I mean, where is the common sense in that? Where is the human decency? What is wrong with these people? Let me know what you think. 03444991000, plus, of course, Lucy Connolly, plus, of course, Keir Starmer's Brexit betrayal. You can call me on any of those issues or anything else you might want to talk about. 03444991000. Your calls, your messages, your WhatsApp voice notes when we come back. Stick around.
Many of his colleagues at the BBC would probably think along somewhat similar lines, though probably with a bit more nuance than he did. But they're the sort of people who've got the self-discipline and they understand a binding undertaking not to put their thumb in the scales and not to start advertising their own views when they are there specifically to be impartial. Right. As we saw with Emily Maitlis, her feet hardly touched the ground after she'd given a rant which very much betrayed her views.
This is just the latest, let's face it, ridiculous disaster that Labour have presided over.
This ought to be the end of the Labour Party. If there was any justice, this would be the end of the Labour Party. I mean, throughout my 14 years in Parliament, I saw that the Labour Party in Parliament was completely disconnected from the working people they purported to represent. Right. They have gone on and on and on about niche cultural issues in ways that I know, because I'm from a working class background, that normal working people are not interested in those niche cultural issues.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Before we go to the phones, a little pop fact for you. One of the judges at the Court of Appeal, Lord Justice Holroyd, who ruled about Lucy Connolly. Lucy Connolly saying my sentence was excessive, 31 months for a tweet, not fair. I was emotionally upset because I lost my own kid, all of that. Well, Lord Justice Holroyd said there is no arguable basis on which it could be said that the sentence imposed by the judge was manifestly excessive. What a load of crap. It's clearly manifestly excessive, isn't it? However, this is the same Lord Justice Holroyd who in 2023 did decide that the sentence handed down to former Labour peer politician Nazar Ahmed for attempting to rape a young girl and actually raping sexually assaulting a boy, that his sentence of 5.5 years was excessive, and they reduced that by 2 years. So he did decide that Lord Ahmed raping sexually assaulting a young girl and raping a young boy, him getting 5.5 years was excessive, so they cut that term to 2.5 years. So that was an excessive sentence. But Lucy Connolly getting 31 months for hurty words on Twitter, there's no way, according to Lord Justice Holroyd, you could argue that that was excessive. This guy seems to me to be perhaps the epitome of two-tier justice. What do you reckon? 03444991000. Let's go straight to the phones. Let's talk to Debbie in Essex. Hello, Debbie. You want to talk about the Brexit betrayal?
Oh, my gosh. There is so many things I need to talk about, Kevin. I could write a book.
Go on, then. Let's do chapter one, shall we?
I just don't even know where to begin. You've just had, oh my gosh, I've had to write it all down. I've got so many bits of paper.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to the Brexit, no one came and asked me if I wanted to do this. There's like 17.5 million people that voted for us to be out of Brexit, and yet he's just gone along with it. It's like, yep, okay, we'll do. You can have 12 years. Yep, we'll do all of that. No one asked me if I wanted that, and I'm pretty sure that no one asked the other 17.5 million people if they wanted.
Exactly, Debbie. I think the 17.4 million people who voted for Brexit have been bitterly betrayed here, really badly betrayed. Now, what Keir Starmer argues is that he made it very clear in his election campaign that, you know, he would seek a Brexit reset. So when he got voted in last July, horrific day, July the 4th, he believed he had a mandate.
All of this and not the other people.
He believes he has a mandate to do this. I don't agree, I'm with you, but he believes that that's why people voted for him. It's not, though. It's not. And it's his complete disregard of people like you, of the 17.4 million people who voted to leave Europe or the EU, that I find shocking. He just doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what the 17.4 million people think.
Too edgy to think what it's going to be like in the next 4 years.
Oh, it's God almighty, don't even mention it.
Something done. And I mean, his response with his little interview about Lucy Connolly.
Yeah, I'm not aware. I'm not across the details of this case. Who is he trying to kid?
Oh my gosh!
Who is he trying to kid, Debbie?
It's disgusting. And again, if Gary Lineker, he did the exact same thing. Why is he not in prison?
We do learn today that the Metropolitan Police are considering launching a criminal investigation into his allegedly anti-Semitic post on Instagram. He shared it. Yeah.
Are pretty zero.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that. You can't tell, but it's Keir Starmer that worries me. That's the point. He knows 17.4 million people voted to leave Europe or the EU. He doesn't care. Doesn't care what you think. He's got contempt for what you think. He thinks he knows better. And also he just wants for us to be attached by an umbilical cord to Brussels. He loves Brussels. He wants us to be beholden to the EU, to that sclerotic, dying continental organisation. And he has pretty much rejoined the European Union for us in all but name.
I know, it's beyond. I mean, it's just beyond. Can I also say, when I got home from work, I'd only just caught your interview with Andrea.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's such a shame she cannot be the mayor of London here.
God, if only. I mean, Andrew's one of those rare politicians that speaks human. It's like not speaking to a normal human being. So many...
An actual normal person.
Yeah, normal person with normal emotions and normal thoughts. Keir Starmer is the very opposite of that. He's a very odd, weird madman, I think. He's just got a very strange oddball. God knows, an automaton, a lawyer, bound by rules and regulations and conventions and diktats. No thoughts of his own. Except for his obsession with the EU. Debbie, I don't know what to say to you, but except I totally agree with you. We have been sold down the river in the most disgusting way by this Prime Minister. But good to talk to you, Debbie. Keep in touch. Always good. Debbie in Essex. Let's go to David in London. Hi, David. You want to talk about Lucy Connolly? What would you like to say?
Yeah, it was earlier when I saw him interviewed Starmer when he said that he didn't know much about it. And all that. That got me to ring up in the first place. He seems to have like a wish list that he's going through. I mean, when he said when they lost in Helsby, yeah. when he said, we here, he said, we're going to have to go faster. Well, he's obviously found himself an E-type because he's just... delusion.
Yeah, well, that was so weird. It's a good illustration of his strangeness. So that you get a reform landslide all over the country. You're talking about Runcorn and Helmsley, aren't you? where sensationally they took reform took Labour's seat, 14,000 majority overturned, plus all those 650 or so council seats that they won that they took from other parties, particularly Labour. They gave Labour one hell of a kicking. We know what reform stand for. What was Keir Starmer's response? I need to go faster and harder with what I'm doing. No. Millions of people just voted against what you're doing. Why would you interpret that massive landslide for reform, both local elections and that by-election, parliamentary by-election, the massive landslide in favour of reform? Why would you, Keir Starmer, interpret that as a demand by the people for you to go faster and harder into your socialist rabbit hole? What's he talking about? Where did he get that idea from?
Yeah. Also with Lucy Connolly, I mean, not only she lost a young son, but now her 12-year-old daughter, puberty, etc., she is not going to be having the best of times. So
we know that. We know that. I interviewed her dad, Ray Connolly, Lucy's heartbroken husband, a couple of months ago, and he's very worried for his daughter. She's not quite across what's going on. And Lucy's not allowed to come home and visit her. Most women are allowed.
That's just unbelievable. There,
I know they're treating her as if she's public enemy number one. She is no threat to society whatsoever, and us keeping her, or this country, the state, keeping her behind bars until at least August, it's vindictive and horrible, unnecessary. Two-tier Keir's, two-tier justice system, two-tier Britain. It's a disgrace, David, it really is. Listen, I'm going to have to move on, but thank you. Excellent call. David in London there. I'll just play a quick WhatsApp voice note, then we'll go to break. This is Tristan on two-tier policing.
Hello, Kevin. It's two-tier justice all the way, and it's so bluntly obvious. Thing is that until something actually changes in the judicial system and it's actually called out by the Prime Minister, which it never will be, it's just going to continue, and we'll just have to keep picking out these different incidents that happen and saying, there's two-tier justice, there's two-tier justice, and nothing at the moment is going to change.
Yeah, it's going to continue. The two-tier justice is going to continue, Tristan, because the Prime Minister wants it to continue. You know, this is two-tier Keir's two-tier Britain with his two-tier justice system. Different rules for different folks. You know, all of those people, 385 people, something like that, were arrested and sent to jail pretty damn quickly after those riots, much too quickly for comfort, in decent haste. In jail within a week. Most people wait 2 years to go to court. So clearly there was an APB, let's get this done, let's get it done quick and throw the book at them. You know, clearly this came from two-tier Keir. Two-tier justice, political prisoners, left, right and centre. 12 of these people who went to jail after the Southport and Summer riots went to jail specifically for hurty words on social media, nasty words. They shouldn't be going to jail. Lucy Connolly especially, but none of them. 31 months. It's a joke, folks. Let's go to break. When we come back. More of your calls, more of your messages and voice notes, so stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. A couple of sad deaths to announce. First of all, Patrick O'Flynn, former Daily Express political editor who became a Brexit Party MEP, very closely aligned to the Reform Party, friend of Nigel Farage, has sadly died at the age of 59 after a short battle against cancer. Very sad. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage said Paddy was a great journalist, a great thinker, a great patriot and a titan of our joint cause. Thank you, Paddy. Also another sad death for those of you comedy fans, George Wendt, who played Norm in taxi in Cheers as well. In Cheers, wasn't it? The generously proportioned guy at the bar has sadly died at the age of 79. So he too will be sorely missed. Great actor, very funny actor. Right, let's go back to the phones. Let's listen to a WhatsApp voice note first, shall we? This is Carl on Lucy Connolly.
Hi Kevin, I've just been watching an interview with Keir Starmer when he turned around and said, I don't know the details of the Lucy Connolly case. Yeah, right. Every single person in the country must have heard about the Lucy Connolly case. Typical politician trying to get out of it. The guy's just a blatant liar. Everything he says is a lie. I'm sick and tired of the guy. Sooner he's gone, the better. Never heard of the case. Who's he kidding? He had her thrown in front of a judge within about 2 days. Unbelievable.
Yeah, what it is, Carl, the technical term for what the Prime Minister was doing when he said, I'm not across the details of the case, is he was lying. And his useless advisors obviously told him to plead ignorance. This is a bit difficult in this case, so act like you don't know about it. I mean, everybody knows about the Lucy Connolly case, and if the Prime Minister genuinely doesn't know about it or didn't when that interview was conducted, then shame on him. He's not doing his job properly. He should know about the Lucy Connolly case, but he does. He's just pretending he doesn't and insulting our intelligence along the way. Quick text here from Bill Groombridge in Crowborough. Bill says, since when has any British Prime Minister had the right to make all these agreements off his own bat with no thought for public opinion and desire? The man is power mad. That's Bill in Crowborough. But yeah, I mean, he does seem to go off on his own. I mean, he would argue as part of the mandate I was given when you all voted, when you all made the mistake of voting for me at the last general election. I said I would get closer to the EU, and I'm doing it. But I don't think anybody was prepared for the shock of what happened yesterday in his surrender summit, where he just basically handed everything to the EU. Basically, to sum up the deal, we now have to pay Brussels billions and billions of pounds every year to take their rules, to be bossed around by their regulations. And it's for that privilege, it's going to cost us billions of pounds. It's like being a member of the EU, only we can't vote. Isn't that special? 03444991000. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to new caller, love a new caller, Sheila in Worthing. Welcome to the programme, Sheila. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kevin. I'm just thinking that I don't know how many appearances Lucy Connolly had, but normally, I'm going back 20 years, but normally in the magistrates' court, they only have 6 months, able to give 6 months. So did she go to the higher court? Did she go to the Crown
Well, no,
Court?
I think that she didn't appear in magistrates' court, or if she did, magistrates were... I mean, I was a former local paper reporter. I remember that as well. Magistrates were only allowed to give 6 months behind bars, and it was pretty rare they ever banged anybody up. But I suspect there were special courts set up after Southport and the summer riot. So I don't think it was a question of magistrates over-sentencing her. And obviously, you know, people say, oh, well, Keir Starmer and the government had nothing to do with these sentences. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. All these judges, all these magistrates, they're acting under instructions. Throw the book at these people, the Prime Minister says. It's disgusting. Lucy Connolly's a political prisoner as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with the woman that phoned up before on she's because she was a Tory.
You mean, yeah, no, yeah, that's right. Yeah, she committed the crime of being right of centre. It's not allowed. It's unlawful now in this country. Yeah, her husband is a Tory councillor, nice guy called Ray. He was on my show a couple of months ago. Yeah, and that, no doubt, was a factor. If her husband was a Labour councillor, she'd probably be walking free now. It's a very good point, Sheila. Thank you very much for an excellent call. Don't make it your last call. That was Sheila in Worthing. What have we got here? Yeah, this is from Tad. Might be Ted. It says Tad. Kevin, in an attempt to better understand Starmer and his motives, we should give him a label. He is big state, anti-democratic Marxist. You forgot globalist. He's a globalist. He looks to the international community before he looks to his own country. He's more interested in the hopes and the needs and the wants of the EU, of the Brussels crowd, than he is his own country, Britain. This is the guy, don't forget, who actually said that when he goes to Davos, the weird gathering of tycoons and politicians who think they're pulling all the strings, he actually says he feels more comfortable there than he does in Parliament. So that's his world, the world of technocrats, the world of people making decisions behind the public's back. That is his world. Shall we go to... let's go to Nick, another new caller. Good. Nick in Bristol. Hello, Nick. What would you like to say?
All right, Kev, yeah. This Lucy Conley, we all know it's a debacle, it's a joke. She is a political prisoner.
Yeah.
But whatever's happened to the man who's Ricky James?
Oh, the Labour councillor. Well, the thing about is it Richard James? Yeah, Richard James. Yeah. Ricky Jones. He's that Labour councillor in South London who was arrested for calling for the extermination of Jews and God knows what. Well, the thing is, Nick, here's what happens to him. He's still waiting for his case to be heard in court. So he's going through the justice system at the normal pace, which is really, really slowly. The wheels of justice in this country turn ridiculously slowly. So he'll be waiting for about 18 months, maybe 2 years, like everyone else does. That's what's happened to him. So we can't prejudge the case. He says he's innocent.
But he's done a bit of remand sentence already. And I wonder if the court would turn around and say, "Oh, you'll get a suspended sentence because the sixth time you've served."
We'll see when he gets to court, but we'll have to.
It's ridiculous. But why ain't he been fast tracked?
Because he's a Labour politician, you know, Labour. If he was a Tory, he'd probably be in Wormwood Scrubs now, doing 10 years or something.
Why ain't people forcing Starmer to speak about it? Like, he spoke about the riots, he speaks about everything else when he wants to.
He didn't speak about Lucy Connolly, he pretended he didn't know anything about it.
So wait, one of his Labour councillors not being charged?
You can't force. The thing is, Nick, you can't force people like Keir Starmer to talk about anything. And subjects that he finds awkward, he will always avoid, and he does avoid them. This is the guy who, when asked about two-tier policing, just said, "That doesn't exist," and stormed off.
Oh, he is.
He's a liar, and he's a snake oil salesman, and he sold us down the river with his Brexit deal. So congratulations to Britain. What a wonderful Prime Minister we got. Nick, I don't know what to say to you, mate, but we're in trouble, and we're going to be in trouble for the next 4 years as long as this idiot Starmer is in control. We've got deep problems ahead. But loved your call, mate. Call me again. Nick in Bristol. Let's quickly take a WhatsApp voice note. This is Nathan on Keir Starmer, funnily enough.
Hi, Kev. We've had Labour in government now for, 10 months, and just look at the mess we're in. It's absolutely diabolical. I dread to think where we're going to be in the next 4 years. He's not going to stop until he has Britain the way he wants it and the way he sees it. He doesn't care about democracy. He doesn't care about the people's vote. We need this man out. I'd say everyone needs to get up and start protesting, but we get thrown in jail for that now, don't we?
Yeah, you do. If you protest against Keir Starmer, you get 10 years in Wormwood Scrubs or Wandsworth or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I wish we could do something about Starmer, but we can't. We're stuck with him. Everybody voted for him. That's their mistake. So now we have to pay the price. Let's take a break now. When you come back, we'll still have time for a few calls, a couple of calls, maybe some messages. And Petri Hoskin will be in the studio to tell you what she's got lined up for you from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. So stay tuned.
Keir Starmer was too busy swigging champagne yesterday afternoon than come into Parliament to explain his actions and to be scrutinised democratically by MPs and peers, which is outrageous. And this whole thing now, they've introduced sort of clauses that, quite frankly, I think in the sense of democratic freedom and openness and free trade, we absolutely have to scrutinise and run the slide rule over. It is wrong. He didn't have the mandate to do that. You know, he could only say he had the mandate to do that if he was honest with the public last year at the general election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Final WhatsApp voice note. This one is from Steve, and it is on the Brexit betrayal.
Hello, Kev. We all know that Starmer, basically, deep down, he's just a deeply spiteful, callous man, honestly. There's no empathy in the bloke whatsoever. And being the EU fanatic that he is, ever since Brexit, he has just been waiting to punish the 17 million people who voted for Brexit. And now he's done it. He's like a neighbour with a grudge, one of them nutty ones who terrorise their neighbours. And he ain't finished yet. 4 more years of him. Oh, my God.
Thanks for that reminder, Steve. You're right. 4 more years of hell ahead. And I like what you said there. I think he is a bit spiteful. He's a bit nasty. You know, he has contempt for the 17.4 million people who don't believe the same thing that he believes, which is that we should be umbilically attached to Brussels. You know, that we should be beholden to Brussels. We must give Brussels billions of pounds to obey their rules and regulations, to do what they tell us. That's where we're at now. He sold us back into subservience to the Brussels Club. Subservience. We are now the servant of the EU again. We've got to give them money so we can obey their rules. We haven't got any voting rights, so we're worse off than we were before. At least in the old days we had a vote at the table. Now we just have to do what we're told, and we've got no vote at the table. We have no say in anything that horrible organisation, the EU, decides. But there you have it. Right, let's go back to the phones. Let's quickly talk to Adam in Belfast. Adam, you too want to talk about Lucy Connolly. What would you like to say?
Yeah, Kev, it's just a quick one, really. You know, she's sitting in prison because of nasty tweets, you know.
Yeah.
But the story about the guys who absolutely smashed the hell out of two...
You mean the Manchester Airport people?
The Manchester Airport, yeah. Whatever happened to them?
Well, they're waiting. They're waiting for their trial. You know.
What are they waiting for?
Well, it's not there. It's not within their gift to decide when they go into the court.
I know that, but I mean, what is the problem? The hold up there, because it was.
Well, no, I mean they're just you know? Adam. They're just. In the normal legal process, a bit like that councillor who's was under arrest, the Labour councillor.
They tend to speed up.
They obscenely speeded up the cases after
because of the demographic. I'm guessing that is what the hold up is.
Well, no, kind of. It was. Keir Starmer thought that the way to stop the summer riots was to basically throw as many people into jail and give them very hard sentences as he could.
The thing is, Kev, as well. That's okay, but I'll tell you what it is. With the British people, I think, and especially the English, have had their backbone removed since the Second World War, and I tell you that we've got no guts anymore in this country because they can't jail us all if we all kick off.
Well, I mean, a lot of people say there may be trouble brewing, that we're getting pushed around so much that something's got to give. But we will see. But those two Manchester guys, they're waiting for their case to be heard, so we mustn't prejudge the outcome there. Adam, thank you for the call. Good to talk to you. Adam in Belfast. Petri Hoskin is in the studio.
Hello.
What's going down? What's going to happen in your show?
What's going down is electronic tags, because the new Justice Secretary is saying, that Secretary Shabana Mahmood is saying